Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We're going to go ahead and get started. I know I'm really loud. One of the things I need to tell you is everybody put your lips on because we're web streaming this morning. So make sure you use your microphones. Jose had some trouble last time hearing what we were saying. I told him that might have been intentional, but I'm sure it wasn't. Be sure you have your microphones on when you speak, and remember that we are web streaming so that everyone can watch us today. Introductions do you want to do? Should go around and do introductions again. Okay, we're going to start off with introductions. We're just going to go around the table once more so everyone knows who's here. I'm Rebecca Lothringer, Executive Director of Admissions at the University of North Texas, serving as chair.
Vic Riseborough, Tarrant County College, Assistant Director.
Yep, there you go. Make sure your little red light's on.
Okay, again, Vic Riseborough, Assistant Director of Admissions, Tarrant County College.
I'm Maggie Nojosa, Senior Associate Vice President for Enrollment Services at the University of Texas Pan American.
Ethan Logan, Director of Undergraduate Admissions at Texas Tech University.
Margaret Decken, Associate Vice President for Enrollment Management at Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi.
Jana Chansey, Executive Director, Enrollment Management Services, Tyler Junior College.
Jeremy Thomas, Director of Admissions and Enrollment Services at Angelina College.
Rita Wilson, Technical Specialist at Amarillo College.
Mary Lindberg, Director of Admissions and Registrar at Houston Community College.
Pam Morrow, Data Analyst and Processing Coordinator at the University of Texas at Tyler.
Daryl Hendry, Executive Director of Admissions and Registrar at El Paso Community College.
Matt Hubbard, Director of Admissions and Registrar at South Texas College.
Tim Brace, I'm Senior IT Manager at UT Austin.
I'm Angela Swoboda. I run the ApplyTexas technical team until Tuesday. And then Tim Brace will be doing it.
I'm Pat Ellison, Associate Director of Admissions at UT Austin.
Good morning, Jeff Fuller, Director of Student Recruitment at the University of Houston.
Good morning, my name is Jose Gallegos, Manager of Operations for Admissions at the University of Texas at El Paso, and I'm here on behalf of Cassandra La Chica.
Bilal Janice, and I'm the Higher Education Counselor for Brownsville Independent School District.
I'm Kristen Reynolds. I'm a Program Manager at the Texas Education Agency.
I'm Claudette Jinks, Senior Program Director here at the Coordinating Board.
Jose Rios, Special Project Director at the Coordinating Board.
Thank you, everyone, for being here this morning. We'll go ahead. We've got a pretty full agenda, so we'll go ahead and get started on our agenda items. First of all, Jose did send out the minutes early and asked for us to take a look at those because he did have trouble with some of our microphones not being on. Were there any changes that you saw that needed to be made to the minutes that you have not already sent to Jose?
I have a question.
Yes.
On the membership assignments, I wasn't here to draw my color, but I thought I was a 2-year assignment, but on here it says a 1 year. It's okay. It doesn't matter. Just wondering.
One remember.
Okay, I'll double check that. Okay. Thank you. And if you could email me, Jose, just so I know.
Will do. Any other questions or changes that you saw that need to be made to the minutes?
I move we accept the minutes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to accept and a second. So all those in favor? Aye. Great. All those opposed, same sign. Very good. One question before we move off the minutes. Jose and I were talking as part of the minutes. We had talked about a December 9th tentative meeting in order to finalize changes. In a discussion, we think that the meeting is probably going to be required in order to finalize the changes that are required for the ApplyTexas cycle for the next year. One of the problems we have, though, when we've selected December 9th, it gives us a very short time frame to actually make any agenda items in order to get it posted 10 days in advance. We'd like to ask if December 16th would be an option. If you could check your calendars, could we move the next meeting to December 16th? It would give us, that's still a Friday, it's actually the next Friday in line after the 9th. It would give us a little more time to be able to put together final agenda items for that meeting and be able to post them ahead of time as required. It's actually better for me as well, being that I wasn't going to be here on the 9th. We would like to take a motion that Jeremy cannot go to Disney World. Oh, no one's in favor. You get to go. I say the 16th would work then? Okay, we'd like to go ahead and change then. The next meeting will actually be December 16th from 9 to 3 o'clock, if you could make notation of that. Hopefully none of y'all are really, really advanced travelers and have already bought tickets to be back on the 9th.
We can make changes.
Okay, well, you must not fly American. Okay, so change that. Everyone remember December 16th, and the meeting time again will be 9 to 3 o'clock. Thank you very much. We're going to move on now to subcommittee updates. The first subcommittee that we have for an update is the high school counselor suite. And that was, Jeff, you were elected to head that subcommittee. Any updates?
We are in the process of finalizing some questions, surveys that we'll be sending out to high school counselors for usage to try and get an idea on if they feel that the suite in its current format is what they would like, if they want to enhance that. So we should have a draft of those at our December meeting.
Great. Thank you very much. The dual credit application, we actually don't have anyone that was appointed to chair or to head this subcommittee, at least not that we were able to hear on the tape. That subcommittee is Jeremy, Daryl, Maggie, Rita, Angela, and Jose. Who would like to be the head of that subcommittee, or who was going to be chairing?
I was notified that I was chair on Tuesday.
Fantastic. So, Jeremy, do you have an update for us on that?
We met last night, Daryl, Maggie, Jose, and myself, for a very nice dinner. And what we kind of think, we're a little afraid of going to another application. That's sort of the general consensus of those sitting there. What we would rather is take a look at the order in which we ask questions to see if we can't drive the students to the answer that we're kind of looking for, whether that's, asking early on when they're going to graduate and what semester they're going to enroll, and working with the technical team to see if we can't make that process a little bit more dynamic so that it will drop those questions that don't pertain to them rather than creating yet one more step. Part of this also is I don't think they always understand what dual credit means. Maggie and I talked about in our area, we actually call it concurrent. We don't use the term dual credit. And that even gets more confusing if you're talking about out-of-state people, and they don't always use that in other states. And so if we can find sort of what we've done with residency, if we can find a method in which to move them, I think we'll be better served. We'll get better answers. At least that was the feeling from last night. And others are, Daryl or Maggie, willing to chime in.
Yeah, we really felt that, we've been hearing and we've tried for several years to really work on combining applications, and so to add another one, we felt really defeated what we've been doing the last couple, 3 years, and so want to work with the UT Austin team to see if we can, in a sense, do the modules like we've been doing, but maybe a little bit more granular at the beginning, so that when we can automatically ask, when are you graduating from high school? Birthday, and a few questions that automatically tell us this is a student who is still in high school and is in turn a concurrent enrollment or dual credit, and it would allow them to bypass then questions just like residency does, so they wouldn't have to fill those portions out. Now, how long that would take and what that would cost is a whole different story.
The thing is that the words change depending on the district, because concurrent enrollment could also signal that student who is not a dual enrollment student, because that means dual credit. It could mean that the school is awarding credit in both places. It could mean that a student decides to accelerate because they don't have athletics or for whatever reason, so they go to school and pay on their own either in the evening or in the summer. to get some credits, and the school accepts that, and so really they're not taking it. And then you have the early college high school. We have an early college high school. They take their classes on campus, some don't, so it gets really complicated.
And I think the solution that they brought to the table, I think that might help with not even asking the student what type of application they want to do. It's just applying, and then the application, depending on the answers, will automatically know, the institution will automatically know how to classify that student. Because concurrent enrollment in some institutions is not dual credit. Concurrent enrollment is if you're having if you're in high school and taking college credit, but they're not giving you credit in high school for it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the word and they're different throughout the state. So I think the solution that they brought to the table, I think is the best solution that to solve this issue of classifying students.
Well, there are two issues here. One, we often forget that students don't understand our lingo. And I have to remind my own staff and the people at our colleges all the time, because we'll get frustrated with them. Why don't they just get it? Well, we've been doing this for 10, 20, 30 years, and we understand all the little intricacies of the way we expect to see things or hear things. They don't understand that. And it's not fair to them for us to think they understand that. There's a lot of assumptions going on there. The second thing is dealing with parts of the app that don't apply. And as was sort of indicated last time, our president had an issue with this, and that's dealing with the affidavit. Those students don't qualify to sign that. And so, because they've not graduated yet, that's one of the requirements of that form, is they have to have already graduated. And there are schools in this state that are using that form for those dual credit students. And if you're waiving tuition for everybody, that doesn't matter. But if you're not, then you should have a different fee structure for that student. But most of us aren't doing that. When we started calling around, they're saying, oh, no, they can sign the form. No, they can't. The form doesn't qualify them for that because of the fact they hadn't graduated. So, there's some things, and it's very confusing because it drives them to it. It tells them to go toward it, so it makes them feel like that they should be able to, and they can't. That's it.
What do you all think, Angela and Tim?
I think that we would have to look at the structure of the modules, because the entire app is modules. So while you're setting up different app types, in the background the modules are the same. So what we would have to do is look at which questions you guys are suggesting would be moved forward, and then how we would move people through based on how they answered those questions. When we did residency that way, which is, the complexity of that is way higher than anything else on the app. And when we did that, the business process of how it works we didn't do. Dina Williams did it. She did all of that work to say, if they answer this, they go here. And then got approved by Jane here at the coordinating board. So that's what we would need, is these are the exact questions. If they answer it this way, flow chart, go here, go here, go here. And then we could look at how it's coded and figure out how difficult it would be to revise it. Sure.
In order for that to happen for the next cycle, it would have to be completed by our next meeting.
Yeah.
Right?
Last night we discussed that timing of how this would work. We realized that this will be a lot more complicated than when we did the residency. But at the same time, we recognize that the effort that we put into it will save us lots and lots of time, reduce the number of errors that we probably have to deal with up front. But it still will give individual institutions flexibility to use their own internal controls for sorting and making decisions once we receive the application. I think last night we talked about that we didn't think that it would happen in this next cycle because there will probably have to be another committee formed to look at that, like we did with the residency. And that's going to take it.
Well, especially since this really is more complex than residency, given that residency, except for the districting things at community colleges, works the same across the state. And as we're saying, this doesn't. Different schools have very different rules. So I think that the best that we could do would be to do a good survey of people who are doing dual credit and find some majority rules sort of methodology to use for implementing it.
But also, we recognize that this isn't just going to be for dual credit. If we go to this one or to a dynamic type application, this would really give us a flexibility for what we initially started off working on a couple years ago, getting down to a single application, or maybe an application for the graduate level and one for undergraduate. But just talking to the undergraduate level, if we were able to develop a dynamic application and put into order the questions that we need to know first, like when did you graduate from high school, or when do you anticipate graduating from high school, and then driving from there, that either they're going to be early admissions, dual credit, concurrent, based on each individual school's definition of that. But we could drive the whole undergraduate application off of that, and not just focus on the dual credit issue.
Right.
And that's why I think it would be much more complicated. But I think in the long run, that's really the goal that we set out to achieve a few years back when we decided to go in this direction. And I think just going into modules was a step in getting that way.
Sounds great.
Excellent. We'll expect continued work in this area. Will this study committee continue to work on it?
I think the action item would be to basically start a subcommittee to start looking at the questions, don't you think?
Would we keep the same committee? Yeah, just keep the same committee and well, we can, it's dual credit application, we can start with that version of it. And
I was on a committee last year where we looked at, do we want to combine all the undergraduate applications and have one application, and as I recall, it was decided that wasn't going to work, that we couldn't combine the 2-year app and the 4-year app. So it sounds like maybe we're wanting to revisit that.
Now, I don't necessarily think that you would be combining the apps. You would just be taking that decision away from the applicant. You would be giving them questions to make that decision for them, which app they're filling out.
Which app that they would actually complete through a series of if-then statements, or if-then questions, if you will, then drives them, yeah. Because this could even be a bigger issue because each of us handle even transfers differently than how you may handle freshmen. So it could, I mean, I would recommend when we're talking about this, the possibility that we even look at this beyond just this one opportunity, but freshman versus transfer, returning student, readmit, I mean, a whole series of things, and really have the application drive based on how the student is either in their profile or answers a series of questions. That just may mean that we'll get more accurate, cleaner data when the applicant comes in, instead of having to ask for things 2 and 3, 4 times after we think they're complete.
well, it's basically, you know, the first part of the app would not just be biographical data. It would be the questions that would then make the decision to determine what type of student is this? Are they still in high school? Are they, is this the first time they're coming in? Are they a transfer student? Just everything you said, Jeff. And so we just figured with dual credit and a lot of people asking for that would be a good opportunity to really begin this discussion, and knowing that it can't be done in a year, but we need to seriously make a decision and a timeline, basically, and a cost analysis of what it will take. Can we, you know, do pieces of it at a time? Because I think also trying to roll it out all at one time would be 4 or 5 years from now. And then this way, if we did it in pieces, we may be able to roll out parts of it, sooner.
And this is a usability issue that we would also want to study while we were doing this, and that is, do we want to give people the quick pass to just pick their app type like we do right now? And you know, I know what it's like for me to call one of those automated voice things, and I know what I need, but I have to push 2 and 3 and 4, 16 times. You know, that might annoy people who really know what they want. So we would probably want to consider usability. Do we still want to offer both paths?
And that's a good point that we had talked about kind of offline before. We think that if we ask the questions in the right order, there really wouldn't be any more questions than what we ask in total now. But it would reduce the error rate in that the applicant wouldn't be wasting time filling out the wrong application, because we see that a lot now, not with just dual credit, but other students. Maybe unintentionally they answer the question incorrectly, or they choose the wrong one, the applicant type. But if we structure the questions in a certain way to where it's dynamic, and based on the way they answer the question, it either takes them off to the right or to the left on another string of questions. Maybe if they start down and they start realizing, oh, these questions don't pertain to me, and they start backing the screen up, and then they get back on the right track. We just think it'd be a better tool for the student.
Oh, yeah.
And as Jeff said, it would probably give us cleaner data in which to make the correct decision on our end. Because sometimes, based on the application, we make the wrong decision because of something the student said, and then when we really get into the meat of it, we find out that we got to go back and start over with scratch.
Then Jeremy, I think we should meet the day before our next meeting. Oh, you're in Disney.
Maggie, just meet there.
Yeah, we'll meet in Orlando. That'll work.
I would have two little kids. It would be very sad if I was to show up here.
Just bring them here. This is fun too.
Excellent. So we'll look forward to further reports from this committee. We'll keep the same committee working on the same issue. However you would like to name it in the future is fine. The next committee is the FAFSA testing committee, and I am the head of that subcommittee. We were unable to meet this time basically because my schedule didn't allow it. I would like to ask the members of that committee, which are Margaret, Pilar, Cheryl, Ethan, and Angela, will you still be a member of that committee after Tuesday?
Nope.
So, Tim, would you like to join us on that committee? It would be great if you would. Excellent. So we'll have Tim join us with that committee. I would like to ask that group to meet, if we could meet the day before our meeting in December. Will that work?
Rebecca, I was also had volunteered for that committee.
We would love to welcome you, Pam. The day before, probably around 2 o'clock. Would that work? That's what we did in the past for the meetings we had last year. If you could find us a room here, that'd be great. If not, I could find one probably at my hotel. Not my room. Unless they give me a suite. Thank you. Jose will find us a room, and we'll send that out to the committee members. The next committee is the T-Rex committee, and Tim, I'm not sure if you know this or not, but I'm having a feeling you're probably heading that subcommittee. Seeing that Angela was the head of the subcommittee with, it says Jeremy Thomas on here, and Henry. Jeremy, did you know that? No. And that's only, and which one's the Henry?
I think that's...
Oh, Daryl Hendry. This really looks like one of those microphone problems, so, especially since there's only 3. So that's Daryl.
Becky, is it possible I could join on that committee? And I really think we need to probably have a conversation before the next meeting. There are some pretty significant issues that are happening on the high school side that were, and I don't know if it's a national transcript issue or a speedy issue or whatever the case may be, but, and I'm seeing Cheryl, and I think Cheryl's recommending that she also be a part of that committee as well.
And I'd be willing to join too, because I was working on it the last time.
Yeah.
And this is one that, when I got the minutes, I said to Jose, I don't think I was supposed to be chairing this. I did not call a meeting. But from what I remember at the last meeting, the TEA rep was going to check into the being able to make requests of the T-Rex system in an automated fashion so that our application could make a request for the transfer of the transcripts automatically.
And actually, Dale from TEA is going to be here at 10 o'clock to
Excellent.
Talk more about this committee. Is we're basically trying to get in the conversation with TEA to make sure that whatever API they create will be simple enough to integrate within ApplyTexas. So yes, it's a committee that we need to have, but like right now, TA has all the work at this point. So we're just trying to make sure that we give them our feedback to make sure that whatever API they create will be integrated and implemented next year.
And Jose, that's great, but that's at like step 2 or 3. I think we have some pretty significant issues at step 1 right now. We have a number of high schools that it's just the system as it is right now is just not working. And I don't know if it's a National Transcript Center issue. I don't know if it's a speedy issue. We don't know what it is. And it's not just one high school to one college. It's happening pretty significantly, which concerns a little bit because this impacts all of our application numbers because these students sit incomplete for months and weeks. And what we're seeing, 2 things that we've realized this past week. High schools get frustrated and just say, forget it, I'll send them a paper transcript, which we don't want to happen. And the second thing that happens is more and more high schools are using Naviance. And so they just say, I'll just send it versus, eDocs or the new version, whatever, which many of us aren't set up to accept those electronically yet. So it's just, I think we probably want to have a conversation. I mean, we talked a little bit about this at TACRO, a couple of us, but we're seeing this even sort of spreading more than what we thought it was at TACRO.
And one of the great things about this connection with TEA in the past is that it was just open that avenue that we could have these kind of dialogues. So I understand the API part, but I think it gives us a chance to really connect between the ApplyTexas and basically higher education and TEA in a way that we hadn't done in the past.
And I agree with Jeff. There's problems everywhere. I know that Jeff from Westlake called me, and he was having major problems. And we're having problems. We're south. So it's not just in one area. So I don't know when you're going to have the meeting. I'd be happy to, because I come from pretty far away.
I guess
And I
whenever
usually
Dell
drive.
gets
gets here, we can discuss the issues.
Okay. I'd be glad to
in an open
join you.
forum.
Okay.
And then we can also start to schedule meetings.
And yeah, we may want to do a sort of, if we can, before the next meeting, maybe even just a conference call type situation, because I have a feeling, I mean, December 16th is 2 institutions, one to my right and one across the room, they're done at that point with their fall. But it's going to impact a bunch of us, and I have a feeling that if schools haven't already begun to hear about this, it's going to begin to surface as our deadlines begin to approach.
Well, I would say, have all of these issues been reported to the technical team, the T-Rex technical team?
It has, and I'll be honest with you, the concern we're hearing more so is that when the issue gets reported, they don't get a response.
Okay.
So that's sort of making the situation even worse.
So when Dale gets here, we're on the program side, so we're on the program facilitation side. We're not on the technical side. Glenn Shelton is the person at TEA. So when you have this conversation, I would suggest that program side be in it because yes, we're going to be working with the technical people on the specs for the API and all that good stuff. But they're really the people who understand the nuts and bolts of it. So. Okay, well, I just want to make sure that all the right people, and we're not having meetings where people get frustrated.
And pardon me. I'd just like to echo that sentiment, Jeff, that maybe we can affect change before this degenerates to the point that the only way we'll receive electronic communication from high schools is through a third-party vendor. And I don't want to be beholden to a financial obligation to entities outside of the state.
I do want to just take a second. Welcome. Mary Gooch has arrived from Prairie View A&M. We are web streaming today, so just so you know to keep your microphones on. And Cheryl Rich from Texas A&M University is here, and we're going to ask someone to squint Cheryl in with them because she doesn't have a microphone. Oh, yes, you do.
We have room right here. We can share.
We will squint you up here.
Right here. Let me get her a chair.
We'll take a quick moment to adjust.
Slammed right in there. You want to get her a chair? Just now walk in, Sarah.
Oh, yes, she didn't just now walk in. It just now is when I decided to announce her arrival. She was actually the first one to arrive.
She's an early bird.
She opened the building at 7 a.m., made the coffee.
I think you need that kind of chair with that's gonna be too
And she's already cooked the lunch.
We'll just move down a little. Just make room for you.
Thank you very much. We have added, had some additional people who wanted to add on to that committee. We changed Henry to Daryl. So now we know who we're talking about. Pam has requested that she join, Pilar, Jeff Fuller, myself, and Cheryl. Anyone else? I know this was a pretty hot topic in the past. I know this was a pretty large group that met. Because we all have interest in making sure that this is working both for the high schools and thus for the institutions of higher ed as well. Anyone else we need to add to that? Tim, because you're going to be new, do you want to be the chair of that subcommittee? Because I would recommend Jeff.
That would be fine.
If you're okay with that. Do I hear a second? Oh, there we go. Jeff, if you don't mind chairing that subcommittee, now you have two, but you do seem to be really plugged in with the counselors, so I know that you hear a lot of information first and are able to relay that to us.
And I'll say, not that I'm trying to get Tim to work here, but
substitute when I
other than technically implementing the API part, we're not going to have a lot to say about the business process, so I think it is better for Jeff also, and to open that up rather than have us chair that.
Thank you.
Now we went from me to him to us.
Yes. I didn't want to step on any toes, but I had a feeling that you would agree that this was an okay shift.
I asked Jeff if Jeff from Westlake High School, because he's going to substitute for me when I can't make the trip from Brownsville. So he's a...
So we'll look at Jeff Pilchek being able to help out on that committee as needed?
Because he has concerns.
Yes.
Big concern.
Thank you, Pilar. Okay, and we have, in case we didn't get this recorded, we'll have probably a conference call that'll be set up really soon, because it's not that long actually until December 16th. Okay, great. The next subcommittee is student correspondence, and I actually do not know who is on this subcommittee. They're looking at documenting the types of student correspondence that we all use for training purposes. Does anyone remember? Oh, Pam, good. I think
it was Ethan, myself, and Angela.
She volunteers for a lot, Tim.
Is that acceptance of this other job really final? Is that
Little did you know. Oh, and by the way, you're chairing the next meeting of this entire committee. No,
I have till the 16th, right? So.
I'm just kidding. Okay, so Ethan is the chair of that subcommittee. I just saw.
Thank you.
Welcome. And is there a report on the subcommittee's work, or?
Our report is that this subcommittee is ongoing in its search for this training material, and that we hope to have some more information to report in December.
That's a great report. Okay, so we will look forward to your future reports on the student correspondence. Graduate and international subcommittee updates.
I am polling the graduate and international users to see if they need any updates made. I've heard so far only from Texas A&M, so I've got emails out waiting to hear from others.
Pat, would you like us to go back to our graduate schools and say, please respond?
Yeah, that would be good. That would be helpful.
And our international offices? Next report, December? Mm-hmm. Thank you. So if we could all just kind of ping our graduate international folks and ask them to please look for Pat's email for her questions, answer those questions. Scholarship subcommittee. We have an issue. Until I find it. It's not it. Yes, this is it. Jose, I sent this to you. This is about the NCAA has a problem, and I've got to reread this, and bear with me, I didn't get much sleep, so if I fall asleep, somebody just thank you. I don't know, you have to do a lot more than that. There's wording in the freshman and transfer applications that the NCAA has a problem with, things like, and it's small things that need to be changed, where we reference removal of athletic wording like intramural and varsity basketball. They just want words like that changed to band. Anything that references actual team sports, they want that changed to non-athletic team sport wording. And I sent you the copy that had the. So we need to. Where are my teammates? There and there, down there. Margaret, did you all look at it too? Did you see anything? I think if we just submit it to Angela with where those words, specific words are, and we just pull out basketball and substitute band. So we can no longer use any team words. Well, indicate in the instructions of the extracurricular section that any applicant who is considering participation as a member of an intercollegiate athletic team at Texas A&M or anywhere should not list any athletic participation or athletic honors as part of this application. This would help alleviate any issues of not identifying those that need to have the information not considered when placed on the application. This has to do strictly with scholarship. Division I scholarship?
Division I NCAA scholarship applications for NCAA consideration.
Okay, so you're talking about the extracurricular portion where they do their resume information on the app? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
That probably will need further discussion because that is used jointly by the application for admission and the scholarship. The application for admission is going to want it.
Yeah.
That's going to be a problem.
Yeah, so I was thinking, it's like that we use that for admission consideration outside of, when we use the 18 factors, that's one of the things you look at.
Yeah.
Well, but why would we for admissions care whether we were telling them to list band versus basketball? Because band is a lie and they certify that it's true on the app. It's just an example.
Just the example.
I know, but what would they list? If they're not in band and they're in basketball and the student is going through in our case, we call it individual review, where you take the 18 factors into consideration,
No, it's just an example.
It says, please list extracurricular activities such as basketball.
Oh, you just want to,
basket
but they can
weaving.
still list basketball.
Yes.
Okay, that's not what I thought you were saying. I thought you were saying they can't list they were in basketball.
Just to change the example.
And why is
All
that?
they just don't want it listed as the example.
Why?
Can you say sports? Can you say recreational teams? Seriously.
Yeah. Exercise
Can you say-
things with balls.
Thanks for you got up out of a chair wording.
Oh, we're
Scratch that
we're
from the minutes. That crack on there. Excuse me.
UIL activities.
Oh, there we go.
I like UIL activities. That's very encompassing because it's not just sports for UIL.
Right.
Understand.
Intercollegiate, yeah.
But that might be.
Cheryl, do we know why they want to do that?
They think we're using it for recruiting.
NCAA. Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, never thought about that.
It has to do with, we agree, federal and state grants are awarded to students based on the FAFSA is not affected. It has something to do with some, okay. Institution is not permitted to certify that a student athlete's institution financial aid is unrelated in any degree to athletic ability if the student athlete's athletics participation or achievements are criteria specifically requested as part of the application process for such aid. An institution may certify that the student athlete's aid is unrelated in any degree to athletics ability, even if the student athlete lists the athletics participation or achievements as part of his or her curricular activities, provided such factors were not specifically requested as part of the application process and were not taken into consideration in awarding the institutional aid to the student athlete. We agree incoming and freshman transfer applications. We do not see any need to change the wording to comply with NCAA rules. Indicate in the instructions of the extracurricular section that any applicant who is considering participation as a member of an intercollegiate athletic team should not list any athletics participation or athletics honors as part of this application. This is on the honors part. No, that's different.
Yeah, that's not.
Then you can't list it.
No.
So they don't want students applying for admission to list any athletic involvement.
That we can't do. I thought they were saying as an example. It says remove the basketball participation as an example. That's in Part B. That we can definitely, that we could change. We could, because they say, for example, replace basketball as example 2 with band drum major as an activity. That we could do. That's just changing the example. But above that, in Part A.
Now, are they saying it's specific to the scholarship app?
Oh yeah, but the scholarship app
right,
ties in.
But in their response, are they just saying scholarship? They're not saying admissions application?
No, this is strictly related to the scholarship app.
But we pulled the information from the application is what you see in the scholarship app for that section.
Wouldn't it be a way to just somehow let the student check a box or something that those are sport-related activities, and then you exclude that to pull from the pool to the scholarship application? I mean, that would be like a simple fix. Done. I mean,
That would be one way to do it. The administrators, though, from each of the schools have access to ApplyTexas in the administrative suite, and they can still look at the application, and that would still show. So the person from the scholarship office could look at my application and see that I'm a star football player, even if we didn't transmit that information about me to that scholarship office.
Which means they could be influenced.
Right.
Influenced.
Now, Cheryl, is this only for those who plan to actually play in collegiate sports. The reason I asked the question, because it seems like we do a disservice to those who don't plan, but yet they went ahead and played in high school to show that they were actively involved. I mean, there's several institutions that have scholarships for people who had leadership at high school, and that's my concern. I'm
you're
the
right.
athletic side of it.
I see your point.
I want to mention, too, student athletes can get academic all-state as well. And that's a big one when you're applying for a lot of those scholarships, just like Jeremy said, for leadership or extracurricular. You can show academic all-state football, academic all-state basketball. So I would hate to not,
I think the
show
second
that.
part of this is fine. The first part has all sorts of problems attached to it.
Did you get that directly from, did someone from NCAA write you directly, Cheryl?
No, someone from NCAA wrote our honors associate director who submitted this.
But
Our director of athletic compliance.
I think it would be worth asking the NCAA if Jose's suggestion is good enough. If they can just say yes or no with a checkbox that this was related to sports or not. The schools would still be able to see that, but at least in theory they could exclude it if they're supposed to be excluding it from those decisions.
Maybe for our next meeting, we can have the person from the NCAA who actually sent that email on a conference call or something and try to get more information and explain to that individual how the application actually works. Because I think we're going to end up going back and forth via email and the best thing is really to have a conversation with that individual.
And one of the things NCAA really pushes is that athletes aren't supposed to be processed any differently than anyone else. This is NCAA making the change that will, to their detriment, have us processing athletes differently.
Right.
So perhaps we need to say that to them.
I think that our professional personnel who handle scholarship and financial aid should be able to make that determination or exclude that information. And I concur that it's definitely a piece that we want to have in terms of admissions information, in terms to make decisions about admissions to the institutions that we work for. So I think that perhaps there's reference to the bylaws, the NCAA bylaws, in that email. We may look at those further and see what kind of interpretation they're trying to draw from it.
Bylaws 15.5.1 counters 15.5.1 no athletics aid certification required. I mean, it's spelled out in there. So let's see what we have. I'll see what more information we can get. And I like your idea of possibly getting somebody involved in the next meeting.
And I'm sorry, I read it and I thought it was just the example, so I was like, okay, it was not
Well,
a
that's
big
what I
deal.
said too.
That was our
Part two-
original, yeah.
Part
that was,
2 is fine with the examples, but part 1 is not. So,
Okay, waiting for further developments. Excellent.
we may need to table that one.
Wow. Yes, we'll table that for the next meeting.
oh, I woke up. I can wait. Next. Am I off the hot seat?
Just a minute. We were just checking our agenda items. I believe that Mr. Fowler, yes, Dale Fowler from TEA has joined us, and he's early. He probably helped Cheryl make coffee this morning. Thank you for being here with us. Can we find a place to help Mr. If you would like, if you could join us up here. We're being web streamed this morning for the first time. And so we're trying to keep everybody in view. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I don't know exactly where the camera is, but feel free to reapply lipstick as needed, and yes. I believe so, yes. You're being shifted back over. Jose, did we have some specific topics we want to cover while Mr. Fowler is here to make the best use of his time?
Yes, I think we wanted to see if we can get an update on the API project. And then additionally to that,
we have a surprise.
we have other issues that we want to discuss with T-Rex itself that have come up throughout the state.
Well, I'll begin. Thanks for having me here. I'm Dale Fowler, Program Manager in the Curriculum Department now at TEA. We've had a little bit of a reorganization. I've retained some ownership, so to speak, over this project where we're trying to have an API for T-Rex. And so let me just, and I am not the technical person on it, so I'll just put that up front. I'm happy to try and find information for you and try and make things work as best we can. Just a little bit of overview of this project and what we sought to do, and a little bit about how long it's taken for us to get to where we are. It's been quite a journey. We set out in a joint venture with the Higher Ed Coordinating Board to put together online resources of a variety of kinds that were, a lot of them were state resources, trying to help historically underserved students have online resources that could help them get to college and career pathways. So we had a project. We hired a vendor. That program has gone through. It's been duplicated a little bit going forward. There are some other versions out there that are solely funded by TEA, and there's going to be some more coming. But the original intent of the project was to gather all the resources that we could that existed to make things easier. One of the things that, I'm sure you know this, one of the things that made it difficult for students to get to college or to go to college or apply to college was the difficulty in the information, gathering information, access to the information, the sort of sticker shock with costs and just the fear factor involved in trying to go through the process. So the thinking of our project, of this pilot program, was that we would put all these resources together, have it interactive, have it online, and have all these resources available. Well, one part that came up was about transcript exchange, and that's where T-Rex came in. And so Chris Alvarado, actually it was Andy Kessling first was our project person with the Higher Ed Coordinating Board, and now it's Chris Alvarado. And so we've been working on this for a long time, I'll just say that. And I think we finally have arrived at a point where it's finally going to come into being. I hope it's to where we want it to be, and I hope it does what you want it to do. If not, then we can try and modify it a little bit. But let me just read to you what I know about it in terms of the contract that has been recently amended with the Higher Ed Coordinating Board and TEA, and see what you think about this. And then I have a limited amount of information beyond this, but I'm happy to go back and try and find out more if I need to. So we had a $500,000 College Access Challenge grant with our Higher Ed Coordinating Board. And that's another neat project that you might want to know about. We're trying to teach counselors how to teach kids to be resilient in terms of their college-going abilities. So as a part of that, we've made an amendment for $24,000. And the $24,000 amendment applies to T-Rex, to this API. So here's the language of the amendment. And let's see what you think about this. So this is my update. And the contract's been signed. It's good to go, and we're starting to work on this. So here's the statement of services that we're going to be performing as TEA in this contract. Develop an application programming interface, which is an API, for the Texas Student Records Exchange System, which is T-Rex, application whereby another application can pass an authenticated request from a student or their parent through a secure channel to T-Rex to send a student transcript to a particular institution of higher education on the Speedy server. The API would also allow T-REX to pass the status of that request, including whether it was sent and received and acknowledged by the receiving institution back to the authenticated user in the requesting application. So that's where we are. That's what we're undertaking to do. Let me just give you a little bit about the timeline. T-REX is updated twice a year. And this API, once it's built and will become available, the schedule is for it to be, it will be the API defined interface will be in the next release of T-REX, which will occur in July of 2012, which is the next scheduled release of the update for T-REX. And that's before the end of our contract with the Higher Ed Coordinating Board on this College Access Challenge grant. So, as I said, we've been working on this for a long time. We're very much interested in making resources available to students and parents who need them in a way that they can use, and obviously to increase the number of kids who apply and go to college.
Dale, do you know if you've hired yet for somebody to complete that work, or will the same company do it that did the original work?
We have hired. We've looked at it in-house through and the person who's working on it is it's TEA's Enterprise Data Management section. It's Glenn Shelton who I've worked with. We have hired a contractor, somebody that's done work on T-REX before. Mm-hmm. So yes, we have started that process.
The only words that I didn't really hear in what you said were that they would use some standard for that API, like some sort of standard for web services, as if that's what we'll need, is something with a standard interface that we can use. So that's the only thing I didn't hear in there.
My understanding is that it will be a standard interface that all interested parties can interface with.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I would also say then, if Glenn wants someone to alpha and or beta test, that ApplyTexas would probably want to be that organization.
That'd be terrific. And I will mention to you, as part of the rollout, before it's given out to be used, part of the process is that we will have an authentication. We'll do some in-house testing or some testing of some kind or another to make sure that it works before we put it out as part of the implementation process.
One of the issues or concerns that's happening right now with T-REX is when a transcript is sent from the high school's information system through National Transcript Center to Speedy, there could be a mechanism with which either the information never gets to National Transcript Center or never gets to Speedy. So currently right now, an acknowledgement email or recognition, if you will, whatever you want to call it, is being sent along with the transcript so that the universities can acknowledge that they received receipt of that transcript. But if a transcript is being sent, nowhere is there a way that actually says this didn't make it, or it got kicked back, or it was bounced back, or it never made it to the next step. And I think that would be an opportunity, especially looking at, since there's possibility of other entities that could be using T-REX and Speedy, that would be something that be looked at, to at least say, if I upload transcripts, I'm at the high school, I upload transcripts to whatever format through National Transcript Center, that then National Transcript Center sends it to T-REX, to Speedy. If in any way along that journey a piece either fails, bums out, whatever the case may be, that some sort of an alert or some sort of recognition is made so that the school's aware that this did not make it to the receiving institution. Because right now, I think that's part of the problem, is there's no mechanism to say this data never made it to institution X.
All right. I thought that was addressed here, but it's not. You're saying it's not. When it says that it will let you're talking about the institution would know. rather than the sender?
The receiving institution does not know.
And I
Doesn't
think
know that you got it or not?
We don't even know it's been sent.
We don't know that it's been sent. I mean, the school, yeah. If I'm a high school A and I want to send it to University A, and high school A sends it, and University A does not have any idea that the transcript was being sent, you're just sitting there not even knowing that the school had the intent of sending it.
And high school A has an acknowledgement from T-Rex that in fact T-Rex has received it. Speedy has received it in the server, and it's on its way, but there's a breakdown in the acknowledgement.
One of those ways,
in the national transcript, whatever, and Speedy, and somewhere in there it fails, and there's no acknowledgement in that process. It never makes it to us, and there's nothing back then, so we have no idea.
And that is separate from this API, because the
Okay.
API is the
Separate
electronic
thing.
communication between ApplyTexas and T-Rex. It's building that where it does not exist. They're talking about the communication between T-Rex, the Speedy server, and the university, and then back, which is not covered in that API. That's just the student hitting the button to say, send my transcript.
This language does say, and I'm not disputing what you're saying, maybe I'm misunderstanding. It does say, including whether it was sent and received and acknowledged by the receiving institution.
That sounds all-encompassing, like a big circle, but there's little circles with arrows in here, and some of those arrows
Clearly,
are
I don't
broken.
know enough about this to know all the intricacies. But if that's a concern and something that we want to deal with, by the way, this is the amendment language, and so if you guys want a copy of it, or we can make it available to you for you to know what it is we're working on. But if there are things that need to be adjusted, then we can, we want to make this work. And so we'll take under advisement. Now, we have $24,000. That's unless coordinating board wants to give us some more. Then that would increase the scope of the work. But we want to make it work. So we'll take under advisement whatever it is that you want for us to do.
And I think maybe one of our concerns is that it may just be a glitch in the system, that we have a breakdown, because we have the counselors are saying that they're getting receipts that it's been sent. They think the universities have it, but we don't. So I don't know if it's a part of the API. Yeah, so we're even more than saying it's part of the API, that's not really what we're talking about. We just think it's a glitch, and we wanted to make sure someone was aware.
Okay.
I think that, that discussion is like, currently this is happening.
Right.
Without the API.
Right.
The system is not working correctly.
Well, the little bit I know about the relationship between Higher Ed Coordinating Board and TEA about T-Rex is that I think they meet from time to time and discuss issues related to that. So I think that's something that could be addressed there. And if I could help facilitate that, if I can, and I certainly will.
Well, Del, I think that we're a little bit worried that we're very happy with the movement on the API. That's what we want. We want students at the point that they fill out the ApplyTexas application that it generates, a message that will send the transcript automatically to us. But if we're currently having problems with that submission, this is only going to escalate it, because instead of just getting calls from the high school counselors that are saying, we've sent you the transcript, why didn't you receive it? We're going to be getting calls from students and parents who think they clicked that little thing and we have it. And so before we even get to that point, we need to fix the current problem, or we're going to escalate the problem.
I hear what you're saying. Okay.
I have a question. When they send the transcripts, when the student requests that, what you're moving to, will it include everything, a GPA, a rank, the test scores, everything that the university wants to see?
I'm not sure about that. That's something that we could follow up on and get more information about.
I have a question also. I'm Darrell Hendry. I'm from El Paso Community College. This last fall, we received approximately 12,000 T-Rex applications for high school graduates. Came in, downloaded successfully, uploaded it in our system without any manual intervention. So thank you very much for the work on that. But we also have a large population of dual credit students, which T-Rex does not work for.
Okay.
The reason it doesn't work for them is because it does not, that those students have not taken the exit level tax test. And the vendor right now is only being required to put information on T-Rex for the exit level test. So for the population of students that are dual credit, early admissions, early college, high school students, when we receive the T-Rex transcript, we need for the vendor to modify or to update T-Rex so that if there is not an exit level tax score, it needs to show the highest level tax score that's been taken up to that point. So if it's the 9th grade or the 10th grade tax, that needs to show on there. If they're not seniors yet and they haven't taken the exit level, we need to see those tax scores. And additionally, when tax goes away and something replaces it, that needs to be taken into consideration. Whatever is going to replace tax, we'll also need those various levels, the 9th or 10th grade, not just wait to put the exit level on there for high school graduates.
So that's handled by our curriculum department and is set by rule, and so when they revisit the rules for STAR, that'll be the time to revisit what exactly goes on the transcript. Mm-hmm. So when they go through, you know, what the STAR, what kind of form STAR will take on the transcript, that's the time to talk about what needs to be on dual credit. And we have sort of started this conversation, but if you're interested in that topic, you can get with me and we can get with the agency staff that actually handle that.
I don't have anything further. I'd be happy to try and work with you, see what we can do about this. Excited about getting to this phase. If you knew how long this has been in the works, and the intricacies in trying to get two friendly agencies to work together for this, it's been quite a deal. I'm committed to making sure that this works. We've invested time and energy and manpower and a lot of thinking behind it. We may not have everything exactly the way we want it to be, but once we get things going, we can make it so. And I'm going to retain, even though I've moved to the curriculum department from state initiatives with the reorganization, I'm going to keep this project or keep part of this project, and I will continue to be the shepherd trying to see that this thing gets done. So let me know. I'll take these questions back once it gets ready to roll out. I'm going to share this with Glenn Shelton, and then once things get ready to roll out and we start doing the testing, then maybe we can address some of these concerns and make sure that it's the best that it can be. And I'll also say ApplyTexas sounds like a perfect recipient for this API. So, you know, wonderful. That's terrific that you guys are interested in hooking up with us in this way for this acknowledgement and receipt process.
Do we want to set up a follow-up meeting with TEA on this type of issues, or are we satisfied with just getting updates?
I think part of some of these issues that we've talked about can be covered when we have our planned conference call to talk about T-Rex, and hopefully getting Glenn on the phone for that. I think
Glenn's going to be a lot more help to you a lot of these things that I am. I'm just
and then seeing where that goes, because I think while the API, we recognize it's coming, T-Rex is here and now, and I think we want to try and see if we can get some resolution with this right now that could helpfully impact a more successful process when the API, whenever that eventually happens.
Dale, thank you for taking time to visit us today. I want you to know that we're all very excited about the API coming. This is something you said you've been working on it for a long time. We've been looking forward to this for a long time as well.
Yes.
And you're looking at a group of people that are very invested in wanting to see T-Rex succeed. So anything we can do to help you out, definitely, we want to be there for you. And we have that in mind with all these suggestions we bring forward. Don't think we're coming at you. We want to see this all succeed for the students of Texas.
Oh, no, I understand that completely. And I will say it's been a wonderful partnership with the Higher Ed Coordinating Board and working together and trying to get these resources together and in a pilot program. And we served them. We had 39 high schools, historically underserved kids who were doing lots of things to try and help themselves get ready, getting access to information in an online way. We just didn't have this part of it. And so that was the one piece that we realized that we wanted. And there is still movement in this direction for online resources through TEA, through the agency. There are going to be more schools. There are going to be more cycles of these kinds of schools being given the opportunity to have online access. And so there are going to be other vendors, commercial vendors, that will be using this API as well. So, I think the future is bright for these kinds of resources for students and parents to have this kind of access, so that some of the mystery and some of the tedious work that's associated with applying to colleges is remedied. So we're hopeful too. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. We'll go back to the agenda now. We have the next item were action items. Well, the next group of items will be action items from the September 30th meeting. And the first item on there is actually to discuss the finalized recommendation on future ApplyTexas conference. Many of you were at TACRO last week, and during town hall, I brought this to the group, as I had mentioned that I would in the last meeting, so that we could talk about this at TACRO. The question is whether or not we will continue to have the ApplyTexas workshop in the summer, in June. The 2 years ago, we actually had this connected back-to-back with the Speedy conference, so that it would be easier for people to travel. So the question came up at the September 30th meeting: do we want to continue to have this workshop, or is it something that we or the membership feels is not necessary? I took this to TACRO to get feedback. Was that only a week ago? I guess it was 2 weeks ago. Was it just a week ago?
It was last week.
Oh my goodness. Last week. And overwhelming response from the group was that they do find the workshop valuable, and that they would like to continue having that workshop as an offering in the summer. Going to need to pause for a minute and make sure we have Jose back to listen. So maybe we'll go to, okay, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back together. Okay, so I gave a break and I've lost people, but well, Jose's back. It's the other people I've lost.
Rebecca, can I ask, are we back?
We're back.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Based on the T-Rex and the API, I'm wondering why when a student applies, we couldn't also send the information to the schools they're transferring from through Speedy to get those college transcripts. You know what I'm saying? So I have a transfer student that applies that went to TJC. When they apply, why couldn't ApplyTexas do the same thing that we're talking about for high school?
Yeah, Angela, why can't it do that?
Well, that would be Speedy building that API. And from what I understand from Dave Stones, the decision across the decades to never provide that functionality was made consciously, and it was because of the fee charged for transcripts between colleges. How, if UT Austin says, hey, UT Tyler, send me this person's transcript, how does UT Tyler get their $2 or $5 or $8 for that transcript? And that's what has always held it up.
But Don Carter's retiring at the end of December, so. Don't have to worry about that anymore.
But according to Dave, and I trust that man, he knows everything. That's why it never happened.
It does make sense.
Yeah.
It does. I mean, for example, we don't charge, and I would be surprised that there would be a charge for a speedy transcript if it's, kind of electronic.
We charge.
Do you for speedy, regardless?
Oh, yeah. I think we
that's true,
charge
too.
more. We charge it at $57. No, I'm kidding. But UT Austin does charge.
Yeah, we do too.
We don't. It's
Financial
built
hold
in the
is on
student
their
fees.
account. The business services hold or something that would.
Yeah, so if there was a hold, then that would be another issue. That's a good point.
But it could just send the request, at least send the request to the other institution.
And there is an EDI standard for requesting a college transcript. That exists.
Huh. That's something to consider.
Right. That way the student, and then the institution could contact the student and said, okay, say we understand you want it sent, but you have a hold on your record, or, you need to, pay X amount before we send it, but at least to send the request would not be a bad idea.
Thank you. Okay, right before the break, we had just started the topic of the recommendation on future ApplyTexas conferences. Jose was giving them an update that, based on our conversation at the September 30th meeting, I did go to TACRO, and they reminded me that was just last week. Feels like a month ago. And did bring up in our town hall, which is where we have our business discussions, the ApplyTexas workshop, and asked for feedback as to whether the membership thought it was valuable, if they wanted to see this continue, if it was something that they weren't interested in seeing continue. And overwhelmingly, to Jeff's dismay, because they weren't so overwhelming when he tried to bring it up a year or two ago. That is true. Yeah. A year or 2 years ago, they were not so nice to Jeff, but this year TACRO came back. They were very interested in seeing this continue. So that's my report back to you, is that they thought it was valuable. They definitely want to see the workshop continue to see what would you like it. What do we do from here? Since TACRO is interested, where are we now?
Was there any kind of mention of whether we can attach it to something else, or speedy?
If what came up, do you want to?
No, go ahead.
What came up in the meeting was if the coordinating board is saying that they do not if they no longer want to support the workshop as part of the coordinating board, it's been done in the past, then TACRO actually would take charge of this workshop, and we will have it. We'll continue to have it connected to Speedy, which is how it's been. The Technology Standing Committee, which is the group that puts on the Speedy Conference, said that they would assist this committee in putting together that workshop if the coordinating board is not going to do that. So they wanted to see it continue to the point that they said if the coordinating board is not going to continue it, the Technology Committee will help us and TACRO will take it over.
Now, it's currently held sort of in conjunction or close to the Speedy Conference.
Yeah, back to back.
So they're usually Speedy first and then ApplyTexas Conference. And because a lot of the folks who come to Speedy also are the technical folks who come to ApplyTexas. And that seems to have worked.
Mm-hmm.
When we, last year at TACRO, broached the subject of maybe trying to combine Speedy, ApplyTexas, and the summer meeting, is where we had pushback, because that's just 4 days or 3 days out of the office. We were doing this, try to hopefully see if there's a way we could maybe save on travel cost, and it really wasn't an issue for most institutions. Last year, at least, people liked the fact that Speedy and ApplyTexas was back-to-back, and then the summer meetings were at a different period of time.
Becky, that's what I wanted to say. I'm sending 2 different teams of folks to both meetings.
Right.
Because the Speedy and ApplyTexas, I was able to send some processing folks from the admissions office along with 2 IT folks.
Right.
And so they were able to go together. The summer TACRO meeting, I'm sending my CBM reporting person.
Right.
So, and really, I would say I want to keep Speedy and ApplyTexas in June. That's a big one for us, because in July, it's always a problem, even when the summer TACRO meeting, we're finishing our heaviest freshman orientations. So I really like the timing of Speedy and ApplyTexas. It's just a small breather before we kick into high gear, and I can send those processors out of the office for a few days.
And thank you, Jana. And that is one thing we heard quite a bit, was that it's a different audience that comes to a Speedy and ApplyTexas.
Yeah.
Which is why, because we asked, I said, do you feel like it's redundant that you're sending people and they're getting the same information over and over again? But because we know that some of the same sessions are done at each one of our meetings, but what came back was that they send different people. And I'm like Jana as well. I send admissions processors and IT people, and myself go to ApplyTexas. That same group will not attend TACRO, will not attend a summer meeting. So it's just a different audience is what we kept hearing back. It's a different audience coming because it's a different topic. So you get those people there that really are in the minutia every day of ApplyTexas and Speedy.
Now, if TACRO takes it over, are they going to separate the fees where, people that want to come to the ApplyTexas Day pay less?
We didn't talk about it, but I'm sure we would have some kind of rate structure so that people who are there for Speedy are there for Speedy, and people that are there for ApplyTexas are there for ApplyTexas. I'm pretty sure our registration system allows for that, because right now you can sign up for workshops, or you can sign up and say, yes, I do want to do this and I don't want to do this. But we didn't get that far. I told them that I wanted to hear their thoughts. They actually brought it up. I didn't broach the topic of what do we do if the coordinating board no longer wants to support this. The TACRO members brought it back up to me and said, well, we think it's important enough. So that's about as far as we got. It was just a town hall meeting. I told them we'd bring this back for this committee because it was coming up very soon, and that we would get back with them. And I do have the technology standing committee is willing to help us with the planning, and they already have a registration system set up, so they would help us with the registration. They mentioned that too. The chair of that committee stood up and said, we'd be happy to help you keep this going, because we don't have a ApplyTexas committee right now. That's something that probably TACRO will look at in the future if we move it to TACRO, is that we'll actually end up having an ApplyTexas committee as well.
So, Jose, I'm going to ask the question, is there no interest from the coordinating board to continue to sponsor the ApplyTexas conference in its previous format? Or is there interest to continue that? What's the sense from the direction here at the coordinating board?
I think there's interest in keeping the information or putting the information out there. I think there's a bigger issue of the content of whether it's worth having a full day and all the administrative oversight of a conference like this by the coordinating board, taking that administrative oversight, especially since there's only one person now with no admin. So anyways, yeah, there is the interest of keeping the information alive and putting it out there. It's just a format that we're interested in changing.
So you think if TACRO then proceeded to do the administrative portion of actually putting the conference on and even creating the agenda, that the coordinating board would still be available to at least present, because there are things that we offer, things like even residency that I know are mentioned. Well, they're offered in other venues, but again, when it comes right down to it, we're sending people who don't necessarily get to go to those particular meetings, and so it's really a good opportunity for our staff who do the daily work to get that information. So would the coordinating board still be willing to work with TACRO in the sense of presenting at the workshop?
More than likely, yes. I mean, it would be another session request that, I mean, we always present there's always a presentation by the coordinating board at TACRO, so it wouldn't be any additional resources or additional travel from our end to do an additional workshop.
But Maggie, I want to mention, you said something good. My folks tell me sometimes the dialogue is the best information they get before, during, and after. It's not just putting the information on the web and having them funnel through it. It's how they do their processing, how they use Banner. I mean, those are our technical people that come. So really, the dialogue is just as important as what's on the agenda.
So Becky, will you take it back to TACRO then?
No, if that's, do you think that's the?
I think you'll need to make a motion of, or a recommendation of keeping the conference at the coordinating board or sponsored by the coordinating board or TACRO, and then
So we're
I'll
still.
send it, I'll present the recommendation to McGregor to make the decision.
Becky, even if TACRO sponsors it, could we still use the Pickle Center, or do we need to look at an off-site venue and some of those things?
With the technology committee helping us in looking at the timeline, I imagine at least this first year we'd be looking at the Pickle Center because that's where Speedy Conference is held as well. So if TACRO were to take it over, I would imagine at least this first year, and probably as long as we're combined with Speedy, which I think that we all agreed we liked, we would want to work with the technology committee as to where we hold it so that they'll be in the same place. Yeah. Well, and here's the question. Jose's saying we can make a recommendation from this committee that we continue at status quo, period, and that we're asking that the coordinating board consider continuing this conference or workshop as is. So that's the question on the table now. Do we want to send a recommendation back to the coordinating board that we'd like them to continue the support of this workshop to continue as it has been in the past? Are we making it?
We do.
We have a motion.
Jenny, can I have a friendly amendment to that? I would like to recommend, remove that ApplyTexas, whatever we are now, advisory committee, recommends that the ApplyTexas Users Conference continue in its format as has been previously been delivered. And if that is not agreed upon by the coordinating board, that TACRO takes on this responsibility.
Second.
In conjunction with Speedy.
In conjunction with
They
Speedy.
like that.
My fear is if we don't have any kind of resolution to this pretty soon, we may be running out of spaces because the Pickle Center could be even booked the day after the Speedy Conference.
I think a
You're
decision
talking
will be made next
6
week.
months away. I mean, if we have to look at an alternative location, we better do it now.
Now, exactly.
How many people you think we had the last time? 300?
It was it was over 200, I know for sure.
Because you may not have had the same crowd both days.
No, you had some crowd that did both days, and you had
Yeah.
new people each day as well.
Well, and they're saying, do you really want to spend a whole day? Well, for me, that's 2 very productive days when you're looking at budgetary, who you're going to see. The cost is minimum, the travel is minimum. So, like we said, keeping those together is just as important.
Aren't we just looking at the support for this?
Yeah.
More than anything else? So that's really
The support in the
Registration support?
no, the support in the past, the coordinating board, they have gone out and they have booked the Pickle Center for us, and they have set up the meals for us, and they have run the registration and collected the money, and then they make sure that everything's staffed, and they put together the agendas, and so that's what we're talking about is that, and with the administrative support here has changed, and there is a lot of work that the coordinating board did for us. Yes, we did the presentations, but most everything, if you think about it, we showed up and it was done.
So the motion is that within this, you're going to check everything, to encapsulate this, you're going to check everything in a week, and if y'all can't do it, then we're going to run it through.
Then I'll be,
Is it really worth sending this back to McGregor? Because I know he's not really for this at all. So are we just spinning our wheels to hear no that we probably already know is going to be no? So we can go ahead and move forward? I'm just...
What's the exercise?
Yeah, I mean, we need to get moving if we're going to make this shift, and it seems like we're just delaying ourselves a week. It's basically to hear an answer we probably already know what we're going to hear. So...
Is he going to say no?
I defer to Jose.
I think
He's not here today.
I think that with the motion that we have, I think we need to go through the due process anyway.
I do too. I agree, Daryl, thank you for saying that. I think
Covers both bases.
Yeah, I think the appropriate way is, what we were asked to say is find out if there was an interest from the membership to continue having this. And I did bring up the idea of having, because they said, what would we do if we didn't have it? And I brought up the idea of having like web seminars and things like that. That didn't go over very well at all. So that was the recommendation, or that was the charge from the last meeting, the action item from the last meeting for me. So now I've come back, and I agree that I think we did have a second. We're in discussion. But we did have a motion from Jeff, an amended motion that started with Jana, that we recommend that the ApplyTexas workshop continue in its current format. And I think that's an important phrase. So thank you for putting that in there, in its current format. Connected with CB support, but if CB cannot no longer support this workshop, that TACRA will take over the workshop. So we had a second. Any further discussion? Okay, so all of those in favor of that proposal, say aye. Aye. Okay, all opposed, same sign. Excellent. So we'd like you to take that forward with us. Jose thinks that he'll have an answer by next week. I think this will give us plenty of time. In the case, I'm just going to go ahead and say this while we have all of us together. In the case that the coordinating board is not able to support this going forward, we'll be looking very quickly probably to have a meeting with those of us who can, so that we can set up some kind of workshop committee, because we'll have to move quickly, working in conjunction with technology to get the space, get the agenda started, because I'm thinking if the coordinating board is not going to provide the support, then we're probably also not going to have this venue to talk about the agenda. Is that right, or is that?
No, you can still have.
Okay, so that's good.
Yeah.
But we'll need to at least get together so we can find a place. So maybe we can actually do that by phone. If we can still use this venue to talk about the agenda items, that would be great. Okay.
Emergency session.
Yeah.
Rebecca, at the last meeting, I thought someone was going to go ahead and see if the Pickle Center was available for us.
That was an action item by myself, or I was supposed to do that. We were in discussion with the Speedy people, and I don't think they have selected a date yet. So
They have now, yeah.
They have now?
They announced it at TACRO, so I don't know when they did, but I know they have a date now.
So that's also an action item that I can take, or still a pending action item.
Okay.
I have something just for clarification. I think McGregor is against the entire meeting, or just the support of it by the coordinating board?
I think it's logistics.
If it's strictly logistics, then go with TACRO.
And that's what they're going to find out. I think it's a logistical thing. If you take...
I was feeling that it was ApplyTexas will not have a meeting no matter what. I don't want ApplyTexas Advisory Committee talking about a meeting.
I think it's more logistics of the support that's required and the change in the structure here.
Thank you.
Okay, so we hope to hear back from you very soon, so that we won't sweat any longer about getting space and what we need to do, because we're starting to get nervous.
I'll try to get an answer by Tuesday.
Thank you. Okay, the next agenda item is the adopt recommendation for reverse transfer language in the freshman application. We brought this up September 30th, and we were talking about which direction or which language we should use considering the reverse transfer statement. And I know we went back and forth, so thank you for putting this on paper. Because someone asked me to explain it to them at TACRO, and I said, well, it was one way, now it's the other way, and it's on there. That's basically how I answered their question. So if we could take a look, there was a handout. If you didn't get handouts, they were back on the table behind you, or behind the group over here. There is the current transfer statement is listed on here, which currently is, I'll just read this, for transfer students from Texas community colleges only. By checking this box, applicant agrees to allow the university to which he or she transfers to provide his or her transcript to the Texas community college from which they are transferring to to the Texas community college from which they are transferring to allow the community college to grant, there's way too many twos in here, grant him or her an associate's degree upon completion of sufficient credit hours from the university. Checking yes does not guarantee the granting of an associate's degree, since not all universities and colleges in Texas participate in reverse transfer partnerships. That's current, and besides my editorial comment about I don't like all the twos, it is no longer correct, because we have to participate in reverse transfer at this point. So the next one are the ones below. Are these all current?
This is the first one was the one that we discussed last time. I don't think we had any disagreement on the language. Well, we did at first, but then we reread it and we covered all the concerns. But we didn't have one for the four-year application. Those are first-time students that are coming in with 20, 30 hours from dual credit or concurrent credit, that this reverse transfer statement might apply.
So right now, we have that overarching statement at the beginning of the application. Right, Angela? There's a reverse transfer statement at the beginning. Is that where it is? No, it's meningitis. It's at the beginning.
I don't know exactly where it is. I know it's not on the certifications page, because that was the other part of the discussion.
Right, we talked about it being on the certifications.
That was the recommendation, to take out the transfer question or statement out of the educational background section.
That's where it's at.
And
Okay.
put it into the certification and make it a required question.
Yes.
The other thing, the four-year application, the freshman application, does not have a transfer statement currently.
So the two different sets of wording here, the one that says four-year application, that is freshman. That's for the
That's the
freshman.
freshman application.
And then the one that says two-year application / transfer, that really means transfer app if they show community college coursework. Is that what that means?
No, it's both. It's a freshman application for a 2-year, because the same case might be applicable for the 2-year application. They graduate with 20, 30 hours,
right,
and then they transfer. Well,
no, that's true.
Yeah.
Because if we have a freshman that comes in with college work, if they've just graduated from high school, we make them a freshman. They could come in with college work.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. But it's not applicable to a 2-year, because they're going to get an associate's hopefully for that institution, or
So,
transfer.
Transfer app and four-year app is the one
Transfer
that
app
needs to go on.
Yes,
Okay.
4-year app. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
And the transfer language is what's current. I mean, this is the current wording on the transfer application. The first paragraph is what's current on the transfer application. Is that right?
Yes, this is the first statement?
Yes.
Yes, the first statement is what's current.
Okay. And then we're talking about changing it so that it's the second paragraph on transfer, and then adding the last paragraph for freshmen.
Correct.
Okay.
And then my only other question is, if we want to move this to the certifications page, do we want to display it for everyone? So freshmen who don't have college credit at all have to sign off on this as well?
I think that's the discussion that we had. Yes. Throughout the year, or throughout the academic year, they could be going to a 2-year institution during the summer, and they could get that threshold, that 30-hour threshold, that they could possibly get an associate's.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is if an 17-year-old is filling out this thing with no college credit, are they going to be confused when they get to the certifications page and they have to answer this question and they don't have any community college credit, and they're going to think something's wrong? You know what, do you know what I'm saying? Do we want to add a not applicable, or I will not have any college credit? Do we want to add something so that they're not confused?
We also have transfer students that transfer from other universities that
Right.
will not
That
have
could also be
community
confused.
college.
Because they don't fall underneath that.
Right.
So I think we're going to need to add something else. This does not apply, or, right, we can't have, if we just give them the option to no, they're going to say, that doesn't make sense to me. Does that seem fair?
But that's fine.
Okay.
That makes sense, because you will have senior institution transfers that this will not apply to them, even if they want it
Right.
to. Which, actually, do we put a comment on there about this is for community, it does say community colleges, so I guess we're okay there because it says community college in the language. Even when the transfer from UNT transferring out to Tech tries to say, yes, they want this to happen, it's not going to happen.
Maybe that part needs to be at the top. If you are transferring from a Texas community college, do you wish your transcript? So you see it first, because I'm afraid if you just put not applicable or whatever, a lot of students are like, but, because they tell us already they don't want to.
That's good. I like that, Mary.
I agree with that. They're not going
Yeah.
to understand the not applicable.
Text needs revised in general. It's poor sentence structure and the whole 9 yards. No, it needs revised.
Do you wish?
I mean, can we, I mean, it's a good attempt, but can we edit and send it around?
Well, we have, our next meeting, this is still right, Angela, at our next meetings where we'll give our final changes for this next cycle.
Yeah, right.
So we could work on this offline, come up with the wording that we like, and then have that, and present that at the next meeting.
Okay.
Who all wants to be on the text edit?
Who are our editors here? I have other people in my office read it. I'll probably have people in my office read it. They are
I'll
better.
be happy to be on text editing.
Do you agree?
Okay, so offline, we will look at this wording, so we'll have the wording that we like. I do agree we need to have I didn't realize it went on freshman play, that's why I didn't pay attention. So we'll have that for the next meeting, and then make sure you put a note that there needs to be something about not applicable, or I do not have I do not have transfer credit, I do not have previous college credit. We need to have wording for that too.
Not to be a stickler, but can we just make sure that when we're talking about which statement we're adding, that we clearly define which application type we want this to
Transfer or
go
freshman?
to? Freshman domestic, freshman international,
even
transfer,
more, okay.
international, readmit. There's so many
Yes.
that we just specify which one that is, because that way at least it'll help the team know where to make these changes.
And I'm better with editing than initial writing. So somebody write, I'll edit.
Okay, so everyone who's interested, take this back to your offices, have your editors there look over it. If you're the editing person in your office, if you want to look over it, if you want to send it to me and Jose prior to the next meeting, we can squinch this all together. We can put the top answers out for a vote, and then bring back the answer that seems to be the one everyone agreed on, if that'll work. Because I don't see, unless you want to have a conference call, I think everyone can just work on this offline. Will that work? So you can send it back to Jose and myself, and okay.
At the last meeting, I seem to recall that we had decided that
It would be a yes.
this rule really pertains to the 4-year schools and not the 2-year schools.
Yeah, we just took that out.
And I was kind of glad of that, and I thought, well, this is something I don't need to be concerned about. But I think really I do after hearing some of this conversation here. And I just want to make sure that when we do, as a committee, decide on the language, that it's very clear that when someone looks at it, that they really understand that it's going to pertain to them once they go to a 4-year school.
Right, 4-year back to 2-year.
Yes.
Okay,
And so we just have to be careful of that.
right. That's exactly right. Okay. If you'll submit your suggestions back to Jose and myself, if we have a number of them that look great, we can put them out even for a vote. And then we'll bring back our final wording for the the sit down and figure out how many dollars it's going to take, I mean hours, it's going to take to make changes. Angela had to fill you in on that, Tim. I used to think when she put 500, that was how many dollars it would cost to make a change. I was like, that's cheap. Let's do it. Oh, darn. But he's the subcommittee chair in several different areas on his first meeting. I appreciated your frugalness. You were frugal. Okay. Are we going to go through each of these changes again?
I think what we wanted to, I just put the changes that were discussed in the agenda items. I think, Angela, I think your team was supposed to give a list with hours.
Yeah, how many
so that we
dollars?
can discuss and make our priority list. Do you have that?
We did estimate hours, and I didn't bring it with me.
Do you want to access it?
Maybe Tim can remember. Most of these were fairly small. The emergency contact, that was taking the word emergency off of every single line and then making only one of the data elements required with the name instead of all of them. Neither of those things are difficult. I don't remember the exact number we put down. I think Tim's looking to see if he has it.
It's not jumping out at me, but I'm still, go ahead.
But really, that's 40 hours or less of time. That's not a considerable amount of time. The next one down, freshman app, top 10%. Question 26 on the freshman app. We couldn't find this question. So I don't think it's number 26 on the freshman app because the freshman app isn't numbered that way. Remember, each module has its own set of numbers. So maybe somebody was looking at a paper app when they got number 26. We think that that this question does exist on the transfer app. That's where we found it. But we also don't know exactly how the wording needs to change. So we would need to know what the wording needs to be if it is indeed the transfer app and not the freshman app. And wording changes are very minor, 10 hours. Additional information, the blue, to either make that darker or larger when there's a little helpful bits of information on the side. That is also not difficult. That is controlled pretty much in one place for the entire app. So that's 10 hours or less to do that. Reverse transfer will be more difficult. We'll be adding different questions in the certification page and making them required. That's probably going to require some database changes, so that's a bigger one. I would say less than 100 hours, but I would put 100 on that. A veteran question. I don't remember looking at that one. I'll have to put that on the list for December. Take out the emergency label. I already talked about that with the other emergency, number 1. Replace postal with postal zip. Was that on the emergency question?
I think it was higher.
I think on every
on
zip.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Postal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just changing the wording.
Okay. Sure.
Right.
That is also not big. That's just a wording change. It is in more places, though, which means we have more places to look for it. I would put 40 hours on that. I mean, none of these are big so far. Family educational background, add a do not know option. That's another one that will be a small database change, so that probably 40 hours. None of these are very long.
Lots of time left.
Same thing with family income. The only problem with there, and I don't know how we're storing it to the database, but if we're storing it as a number and the do not know option is alpha instead of numeric, so that's a bigger database change. I don't know how we're storing it. If we're storing it as alphanumeric, it's not big. I would need to check on that, but still, it's 80 hours or less. Deleting questions is very easy. I would say that is, 15 or 20 hours. I put 20 on it. Teacher certification, update to the new levels. As long as we have the new levels, we can do that. And we already have database fields for it, so that's a small change. That's going to be 20, 30 hours. Sorry, I'm not looking at this. Senior course information. This is another one we looked for and we couldn't find it. Now, last year we had this problem on the app, but this cycle, and maybe that not everybody's using this cycle yet. This cycle, it's fixed. We put first, second, third. So this is done.
I think we said that.
Yeah.
I think we did. We were looking at it, and I think you did it in one question, but you forgot to do it on a second question.
No, we looked and it was on all. I mean, more than one of us. We've already spent more than 10 hours just looking for this problem.
Yeah, no, and I believe you. I think we looked at the PowerPoint, and whenever we created the PowerPoint, it was we looked at this year's cycle, like or last year's cycle.
Okay, whatever, that's it then. So that's fixed. I have some additional issues. The first one is the scholarship application. And I will say that what happens sometimes with the ApplyTexas help inbox is that people will put a campaign together, kind of like we're the 99%, that sort of thing, and they'll suddenly start hammering the ApplyTexas inbox. So what we've gotten hammered with from people all over the state is hate for the question on the scholarship app where it refers to your parents as biological parents. And it's adoptive parents, and they're not happy. They don't like the way it's worded. They want it to be reworded. That is one of those things. It's said biological parents for years. No one's ever said a word about it, but now they're angry. They want it changed. It seems to me that the good idea would be to look at FAFSA and see what they ask for and have our scholarship app mimic that, but I don't know how it got that way. I think we would need some scholarship expertise to know how it ended up saying biological parent.
Why can't it just say parent or guardian like most things do? I mean, that seems,
I don't know.
Yeah, that seems fairly simple to me.
How about the scholarship subcommittee review it?
How about that?
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
Okay. So we'll assign that to the scholarship subcommittee to review.
Okay. Also, at the last meeting, you asked us to look at defaulting to U.S. where we ask for country, so where we have pull-down menus. And again, this was one that we did look into, and we're coming back with a question, which is more specifically, where is this problem? Because in most places that we were looking, the question said, list a country if not the United States. That's what the question said. So the United States isn't even a pull-down option for them. So we just need more information to know where this problem is. We couldn't find it. So I don't know who asked for that. And then transfer, I already said, we found something on the transfer app, not on the freshman app, for the top 10%. We're willing to change it. We need words. And then also at the last meeting, somebody asked us to put in an audit for non-accredited high schools. And so our question back would be, does anyone know where we could get a complete, accurate list of accredited high schools? Because we're not sure if that exists. And it would have to be national, not just statewide.
Well, she said national, though.
It would have to be national. So I'm not sure how easy this would be to do if there's no existing database of this information. We don't have a database of this.
I think in our last meeting we talked about, I think there's a website that at least lists a list of known educational organizations that are in Texas that are not accredited by TEA or any other recognized agency. And I believe it was on the TEA website where we made this reference. So, I mean, it was one of those things. It's not a comprehensive list, of course, because there could be schools popping up right now during this meeting. So I think that was one of the, at least where our conversation was.
Okay, so maybe we ought to check with TEA. Okay, we can do that. Jose, do you want me to go ahead and give the other little technical updates that I have, or hold off?
Do we want to make the list of priorities, or just keep on going?
I have a question because I wasn't here. Did Catherine bring up any of the, in my absence last time, any of the things like, or can we still add things at this Okay. Maybe that'll be after this.
She did bring up she did have some things we talked about.
Like Houston. Okay, well then I'll wait. Do I wait?
Well, the county codes?
Yes.
Yeah, we haven't talked about issues for,
I'll wait.
new issues that came up, except I brought my one up, sorry, about the biological parent.
I think this is the time to discuss those.
I have a quick question for Angela. Going back to the U.S. thing, one thing that we do is in our own system, we note their country of origin. And if that's a blank, then it pulls in blank. And we're having to recode that on the other side. I guess for me, and this didn't come from me, but for us, it would be nice if it did list the United States as an option, because that way when it pulled across, it would just pull it right along with it. And I don't know if that was the original reason, if that's what somebody brought up for, but, it just, on the back end, it keeps us from having to reprogram that.
No, I think what was happening is that students are not reading the in parentheses comment that says, if not from U.S., or I forget what it looks like, but that portion is just not being read, and so they're spending a lot of time looking for United States in the drop-down list when it's not there, that maybe we should just go ahead and pre-populate that with U.S.
So rather than just pre-populate, the real issue is reword the question and add United States as an option. That's where we got hung up.
Right. And I think we've reworded this about 10 times in the last 5 years.
Not as much as addresses.
Yeah, that's true. Don't bring that up.
Oh.
That came up at TACRO, by the way.
At TACRO.
Yeah.
I will tell Hazel Bill on you.
Breaking out in a sweat.
But I'm not sure that we want to do that. I just remember the discussion about that, and I don't know exactly where that came from. Pilar, are y'all having issues at the high
I think
school?
the decision was going to be doing a usability test.
We talked about maybe this is part, we need to do the usability test on this piece, because we weren't sure exactly what was happening and why it's happening, and so we talked about moving it to a usability test.
That's a good
Yeah,
idea.
because that was part of the recommendation that to just add U.S. or pre-populate it, but then we discussed it that needs to just be looked at.
Okay. Thank you.
By doing a usability test.
If it was blank, couldn't you just send the information as U.S. and not have to app, and then you wouldn't have to change?
But do you want it as U.S.? Or if they just left it blank?
Well, but we're assuming if it's blank, it is U.S., because that's what it says, that if other than U.S.
Oh, if other than U.S.
And so if it said if they don't put anything there, then we should, or we are assuming it's U.S., so if they just sent U.S. as the data, it would take care of like Jeremy's issue. And
I see what you're saying.
I don't, just
So have a value behind that selection, or really it's pre-populated selection.
really not blank when
Yeah.
it comes to us.
Exactly. So even if the usability finds that there's nothing wrong with that, with the way that we're doing it, you still want to have that a field attached to that, or a value.
You know what? This gets to one of the projects that we've been working on in infrastructure time. We're always making improvements infrastructure-wise to the app. And one of the things we're working on right now, it's not in place yet, that I think will help us with these usability questions when we say, oh, everybody screws up here. We are implementing error logging so that when students are making errors filling out the application, we're going to log where that error happened. So after a year, once it's in place, a year, I'll be able to tell you, or I won't, Tim will be able to tell you, really, 0.1% of our applicants are making a mistake there. Or we could come to you with problems and say, we've got a 20% error rate on this question. We need to do something about this question. So that, we're really excited about that, and I knew I hadn't mentioned it to you guys. We just think it's going to be a huge improvement to really being able to diagnose usability problems.
The thing is that you're going to continue to see a lot of that with any school district that's near a border, because a lot of the families the students are living with uncles. Maybe one parent stayed behind, or they still have a house in Mexico, and the kid's a U.S. citizen, and maybe they're not, but it's a humongous problem. We have a really problem with border violence, and so consequently people are coming to just be safe.
Right.
So it's only going to increase, not going to get better.
Right.
I don't know the solution, but it's there.
In addition to my biological parent problem, I have one other problem that I wanted to bring up. Right now on the certification page for scholarships, the applicants do a certification for electronic resume information for scholarships, where they say, I understand that the information I already submitted on the admissions app, for the extracurricular portion, and employment is all the information that will be considered on this app too. That's how we're reusing it. And we're very specific, and we give them links back to that page to go look at it if they want to. And it was really helpful when the scholarship app was only available for freshmen, but now it's open to everybody. So this information is inaccurate now, because grad, for instance, may choose not to include that extracurricular or employment module, but then when they did do scholarships, so now when they get their certification page, they're getting information that's not valid anymore. So I think that this committee will need to look at how we want to reword that so that it's accurate across the board. It's just no longer helpful to students.
That sounds like the scholarship subcommittee as well.
Yeah.
Cheryl has a thought.
Well, I don't know if it's sort of related to that, since you brought that up, that I noticed something else. I don't know if it's related to that or not, but on the scholarship app, if they make a mistake on their income level, they can't change that. They can't go back and if an applicant reports one income level on their ApplyTexas, their admissions app, and their admission app, and they report a different income level on the scholarship app, if they report 150,000 on their admission app and drop a zero on their scholarship app, they can't go back and change it. So it comes in wrong.
Which one are you getting?
We're getting the admission one,
admission app.
and then the scholarship app different when it comes. I guess the data comes in to Farmer, Hillary, with the admission application, or the admission information, and it loads the...
If it's loading from the admissions application, how do you know that they put something different on the scholarship app?
Applicant reports one income level on the app, reports a different, will you take this, will the system make a note of that? Is there a way? No.
Okay, so it sounds like it's coming from both. It sounds like, scholarship committee wants to look at it, because it sounds like they can enter their family income on the app and their family income on the scholarship app as two separate items.
Yes, and we record it, we have it reported correctly off the admission app, and then it doesn't change. The scholarship app does not.
Because they're adding it in, because they're adding it in, we're taking the fields as two separate fields. So is your recommendation then to default from the application, the family income level, to the scholarship app?
No, it's just that they need to be able to go back
and change it
on the scholarship app. It doesn't need to change what loads in, what loads when it comes to us, but they need to be able to change. They need to be able to go back and edit the scholarship app, at least. I don't care what loads. I'm not really concerned about what loads for the scholarship people, but they should be able to edit their information.
If they edit it after they've already sent it to you, though, it won't make any difference.
No, not after they've already sent it. This is before they can't change anything. What this person is saying, I haven't even read the whole email yet, but she can't go back in and edit before she sends it.
Will you guys look at that too?
If you type it wrong.
What?
Yeah.
And who's chairing this scholarship subcommittee?
I think we're just a, no, don't tell me I'm
All right, I'll send you the wording that I'm talking about, then it needs to be changed.
Okay, Cheryl.
I think what happens is that a lot of the students, I know like in our district, we have ApplyTexas, we have Go Centers, and the kids are being funneled in by English classes. They're sitting at the ApplyTexas, and they're 50% and probably higher of what you're getting are not really the incomes.
Right.
They're just guessing. The students are guessing, well, I think that's what my parents make. And when you do a FAFSA, and this year with the retrieval, it's even going to be different. But it's just a guess, so you're going to probably see two. Which of the two is accurate, who knows? But, I mean, that's just self-reported, and most of the time they're doing it and guessing.
Right, exactly. Which is why we're adding that comment of, I don't know, to try to keep them from guessing.
But I think it would be appropriate to have whatever the admissions application, whatever they put in the admissions application, to pre-populate that field to make sure that they're consistent, instead of having two fields
entered separately.
Yeah, and
we just need to have one income question.
And I think that's actually what their problem is. I think that's what Cheryl's saying. They're filling it out on the admissions app. They get to the scholarship app and they want to modify it and they can't. So that's how it is working, but that's not how.
I don't think so. I think they went in and entered it by hand on the scholarship app and entered one less zero, and it came out 15,000 instead of 150,000.
But isn't it radial buttons? They're not put.
I don't know, not according to this.
We'll ask the scholarship committee to take a look at that question.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, I'll do that. Never mind.
Making a list, Cheryl?
Oh, yes, I'm making a list. I'm checking it
always
twice.
do a scholarship. What if you do your application one year, and then when you're a sophomore, you want to apply for a scholarship? You don't update your original application, do you?
You don't do that in ApplyTexas. Only applicants can use ApplyTexas for scholarships.
I'd be sick.
Okay, what else, Angel? Anything else?
Everything else on my list was just project updates, so those were my only issues, those two.
When do you want us to?
Do you? I guess we just need a list so that we can put them in order.
And we'll have more to add to this list.
Okay. Do we want to discuss the new items? Okay, let's discuss the new items.
I have some more.
Let's give Cheryl a break for a minute. Let me go first.
Good, thank you.
That way Cheryl can read through her file folder of emails that she's breaking. How much do you know about the one that's coming from San Juan Alamo, far San Juan Alamo? Can you bring that up, Jeff?
Yeah. Apparently, I'll just read this so everyone can get a sense of it. And this is from a counselor down at PSJ Memorial High School, who actually got this forwarded from one of the ApplyTexas College Advising Corps members. Glitches in ApplyTexas system when it comes to allowing students to input their high school code if they know it. Unfortunately, this should not be an option because the student will not appear with their high school data unless they find their school through the search option. I guess they're not showing up with that information in there when they begin the application. We reported this issue last year and had hoped it would be resolved. If it cannot be corrected, then the option to input the school code should be removed. I was under the impression, and this was forwarded to us from one of our former committee members, I was under the impression that you don't have to enter in the school code. You can do a school name search and then pull it that way. And so I went in the other day and actually created an application. Have not sent it because I don't want to muddy anybody's applicant numbers. But you don't have to enter in the ATPC whatever code. You just enter in the search and it pulls all that from you. So I don't think really it's an issue.
I have direct knowledge of that. They're in our district with Pan Am. I have direct communication with PSJA. They've did some different things where they have different high schools now, and they've kind of changed their names, and there's high schools that have different codes. So I did send a request to fund, and there was really no issue. I think what I saw, all of their high schools were in correctly. I think it's because of what they call their high schools, and you're correct, you don't need to pull the high school code in. So that's some of the things we can work with UTPA on communicating with that district in particular. Maggie, have you heard anything else with them? Yeah, I think they were under the impression that it wasn't picking up, and we have 2 PSJA reps on our campus, and I've communicated with them directly that no, it's there, because we can find them in our system. So,
Do we just need to make sure that we have a process of annually reviewing that with TEA?
Yeah, it was actually one of our last agenda items. I looked at the minutes to make sure that we were covering all of our minutes, all of our issues, and we had confirmation, at least from the minutes, because that was a question I had asked. High school codes are updated annually.
Yep, and Stefan, anytime there's a change, they will.
Really more than annually. If you ever notice a problem, you just send it to the ApplyTexas help desk, and they can add it or change it if a school changes its name or whatever.
I think that, like Jeff said before, I think with this minor issues, I think it's all training. I think it's more of a training issue of letting the Advise Texas and counselors know how to search for those things. And then I get those emails daily, and I don't report them here because it's either like, yes, they are there, this is the way to search it correctly and stuff like that. So I think there is more training, or there needs to be more training in the field of how to actually do an application.
That's the value of the ApplyTexas annual conference, and we've talked about doing a joint conference with TEA as well, so I think that would help.
I was helping a student with one, and I could not find one of our schools in our district. So it could be, I don't know, because we're in the valley, so I don't know. It has different names, so we tried a couple of Homer, Hannah, whatever.
Right.
I know that sometimes there are, I'll use an example, in Houston, if you're looking for Clements High School, which is part of Fort Bend ISD, and you type in CLEMENTS, it's going to pull back 0 results.
Right.
Because in the official name, it's William P. Clements. So I'll be honest, sometimes students don't even know the official name of their high school.
That's true.
They may just know it as Clements or Dulles versus John Foster Dulles or Marshall versus Thurgood Marshall. So I think that's definitely an opportunity where I would hope somebody on the high school campus is making sure that they are doing an exhaustive search as well to find out that, yes, Clements is in the system. It's just listed by its official name, William P. Clements, not CLEMENTS High School.
Right. Yeah, and another infrastructure project, you notice I never even bring up infrastructure projects because they're usually so uninteresting. But the error logging one I thought you guys would like. We're also rewriting the school search in an updated format using an updated database that hopefully will provide slightly better searching. It's never going to be as good as Google searching, but it should be better with a relational database. Right now we're not using a relational database, which makes searching difficult. So we're hopeful, but that is just something, normally we wouldn't even mention.
I agree with Jeff too, because if you search Robert E. Lee in Texas, or Lee High School, we have one in Tyler. Midland Lee, Baytown Lee. I mean, the same thing. You can see they're putting in the wrong thing as well.
That's true.
And sometimes they don't even know what city the school's located in. And I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. They may live in Houston and the school's located in Sugar Land, or they may live in Sugar Land and not know that they live in Missouri City. And this is just the or they may live in Houston. Let me back up. They may live not in Houston, but actually live with a parent. Live with an aunt or uncle who's zoned to a Bel Air or a Lamar. Neither. It's their incorrect, unofficial, illegal address. And I think that's where some of these problems stem from as well.
And I should say that with an improved searching database that we're hopeful that we will be able to implement, you'll actually get more matches that are close but not exact, which means a greater chance of them picking the wrong one, actually.
Oh, good.
Well, currently, if you look at if you put in Lee and type in Tyler, you get Robert E. Lee High School, Tyler. So, but they just don't do the cities? Yeah, yeah.
No, it's
a search now.
It's a box, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe if we made it required instead of optional, they'd find it.
Put the city
in?
Except if they think they live in Houston and they really live in Sugarland.
Yeah, yeah.
Then they'll never find it, and then it's just blank.
I wish I could just spell city right.
Do we need to include pictures of the high schools?
We could,
It would be team mascot.
please identify the one that looks most like your mascot.
You know, I was just thinking, though, Hudson ISD actually is in Hudson, in the city of Hudson, but all the addresses are Lufkin. And so they may not catch that one. I mean, that's a legitimate one that could easily be say, oh, I'm in Hudson, there's no Hudson here. So.
There's only so much we can do for these little darlings.
We could use locate.
Fix it with your transcript. As long as you're not using T-Rex.
I was going to say, I walked into a Go Center in Falfurrias, and they had a banner the size of a chalkboard that said, this is the name of your high school, this is where it is, and this is the high school code. And, I mean, maybe if it's in like 72-point font on the chalkboard, you'll know. I think there are ways to.
But did it help?
I think they're doing okay so far, so, I mean, maybe ApplyTexas should just print banners for every high school with their number on it.
It's like your starting point. ApplyTexas wants you to know this is your high school.
Sounds like a great TEA initiative.
Yes.
Forget about SAT scores. Could you even fill your application correctly?
Webcast.
Oh, that's right. Okay, back on target. I have a question that I think really just needs clarification because I know we've talked about it and I forget. Something that came to me actually this morning because I had to go out and ask them again what it was I was supposed to ask. Why is it, or is it possible for us to be able to load documents as part of the ApplyTexas or the scholarship procedure? I have multiple people that have asked, why can't students upload their documents? And I can't remember the answer.
Well, I've got a couple answers.
Okay.
As it has come up over the years with the ApplyTexas committee, there has never been enough interest to take on that project. And the committee has turned it down as it has come up. But the other thing that has impeded progress in this area is the fact that there is no standard format, and I'm a big standards person, for transferring documents via the Speedy server. Now, that was true up until, I don't know, I'm old, so maybe it was 18 months ago, but it feels like a week ago when they actually advertised, PESC, Post-Secondary Electronic Standards Council, advertised a XML standard for transmitting documents. So there were two barriers. One, the committee wasn't interested, and two, there was no standard format. Now there is a standard format for transferring documents. It would be there would be a considerable cost associated because of the database storage required to store documents such as that, compared to what we're using right now to just store transactional data. So,
excellent. I have been asked to put this on the list, at least for consideration, so that we can discuss it at our next meeting.
Just a quick question before that. Is there, if we decide to go that direction, to save on storage, is it possible to say once it's downloaded and after so many days it takes that document out?
I definitely think that's the way we'd want to do it. We would want to have something like the Speedy Server, for instance, only holds on to the documentation right now of submissions for a certain number of days, and then we purge it. We would do the same thing. Once we transmitted a certain number of days, we're getting rid of it. Yeah.
That's the way things like eDocs, most of those work, is you have a certain number of days, and if you don't get to that email and that document in time, it's expired.
And we would purge it.
Excellent, thank you. I think those are the only two items that I had to bring up. Other items that we want to bring up for consideration at the next meeting? Daryl?
On the last meeting, on the very first page of the minutes, the bottom line, meningitis legislative update, we had talked about some sort of statement going on the ApplyTexas concerning meningitis, and we haven't discussed that.
It's at the beginning.
It has already. I mean, we've already updated the meningitis statement according to the rules.
The statement existed at the beginning of the application, and then you were going to have the wording done, so.
Right, but that's the question, has the wording been changed to reflect the rules? And you're
Yes.
saying-
Yes, and in fact, I actually, TACRO, whenever last week, I had an email from Risa with Sapupsi, and there was a conversation from Sapupsi last week in another meeting at CB where they asked, it'd be interesting if ApplyTexas could include bacterial meningitis on the application. And so I went in again, looked at the profile, and there's an acknowledgement statement at the very end as well with a link that takes you to the actual legislation. So it's, you have to click the hyperlink to get to the full detail of the legislation, but it's there, and you can't submit the app unless you acknowledge that. So it's pretty clear cut there.
Now,
One thing you'll need the acknowledgement now, because that was the original rule, because you weren't getting the shot, you had to acknowledge that you'd read everything about it and knew everything about it. But now that you actually have to do it, is there a need for that part at the end?
It actually is two separate laws, so yeah,
I mean, that was the original law. Is that
and
you
it's
had to have-
still there. Yeah, that law is still there. So yeah, we still have to have the acknowledgement, and they have to have vaccinations unless they meet one of the reasons why they don't. But yeah, we asked that too, but it's because it's two separate laws, and the other law is still in existence.
I will say that when we make a change like that, we make it to the most current or the newest app cycle. So if you're using last year's app cycle, what would that be, 2011? The change wasn't made there; it was made on the newest one.
Do we, when we make changes like this, do we go out and change the sample application that's out there? Because I'm looking and I don't see it, and I think that's why a lot of times we end up creating apps that we don't need to be creating because we're not changing the sample app that's out there, or if we have folks who are looking at the sample app before they get in, like a counselor, who may not be going in consistently to actually generate an application, maybe we should be changing the sample app as well if we're not, because I just don't see it.
We tend not to change the sample app. We tend to make it once and put it out there. But the only thing that changed, I'm not sure you could get to from the sample app, and that was once you click the link on the certification page, it takes you to a page with new wording.
But didn't we move it to the beginning of the app? No, it's still at the.
It's still at the end. I'm
It's
sorry,
still
I
at the end.
misspoke. It's at the
Okay.
end.
Okay.
At the end. I forget where it is.
I think from our end, I think we're still trying to figure out a way to actually put in the add information about the form, the exemption form. So we're still in discussions with the Department of Health to get some type of form that the students can just download if they want to request the exemption.
We've been, because for spring it's here, we don't really have much choice. We've got 3,000 kids that need to have the back min shot by January 7th. So we have a form created, and then we refer them on our site to the form that's the only form that's out there, which is from the health department, the state health, and that's really what that outlines the exemptions, and they're coming in like crazy.
And I think the form that is out there, it's not publicized, first of all. The form that's out there is a form to request the form.
It is a form to request the form.
Well, we actually have the form, like what the student would need to, what the student gets from, when they actually go through because if they're asking for an exemption, they can't just make the request and send it in. They've got to go through a series of pieces with that. But that's the form, and for us, that's the only form that we're accepting, and it's the form that is coming in, and it's being completed by all the 4 pieces: the physician, the address, all the pieces that we need there to show that their exemption is going to be processed.
So you guys are sending that out yourself? You're not making them go request it from the form that requests the form?
We actually, on our immunization page, we have that available for them to at least see it, but more than likely they're going to get that because they have to get that documentation notarized and everything else before we get it.
Could you send me the form?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we got feedback that it's taken 2 to 3 weeks to get the form after you request the form.
No, it's, and I think we're in discussions with the Department of Health, so I'm not even sure if you're supposed to have the form.
Yeah, because I didn't know we could do that. So could you find out, because I'm about to do that too, if we can do that?
I just want to clarify something because I'm hearing mixed signals here. There's 2 different types of exemption. One is conscientious, and you can only use that serial number form from the
That's the form to
health
request the
department.
form.
Okay, but to get that, you have to fill out a form to request that form.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about.
But there's another exemption that's for medical that comes from the physician that has to state that they're recommending an exemption based upon.
Oh, is that the one you're
medical.
talking about?
And that's one that institutions you can create your own form for that, or
Yeah, we're taking
or get it
doctor's
on
notes.
a letterhead from the physician or whatever. But there's 2 different types of exemption. But the one for the conscientious exemption is the one that comes from the health
form
department.
to request a form.
And that's
That's the
and
one
we
that
were
we're
told we
supposed to get.
can't make up a
Yeah.
form for that. It's a
Okay, that's
serial
what I was
form.
talking about.
Okay.
So that's not what you're talking about. You're not talking about the conscientious.
No,
That's,
we haven't gotten any of those yet.
okay.
We
That's the
have.
one that's taking 2 to 3 weeks to get back.
We actually applied for the form, and it took 2 weeks to come in because we wanted to see how long, and we wanted to tell our students, okay, this is how long it's going to take, and it took 2 weeks to come in. Of course, we didn't send it back, so we have no idea once you send it how long it would take to get anything back. And then we are getting some medical.
It takes 1 week. We had a 1 week turnaround. We requested the form, we filled it out, mailed it in, and we've got a serial number, and it was all done within 1 week.
Wow.
Yeah, and just,
Yes.
I'm looking, we created a website, I'm looking at our form now, and medical exemption affidavit or certificate, and just so you guys know, the law requires that you visit a doctor in the U.S.
Yes, it is a U.S. doctor.
It has to be a U.S. doctor to be able to get to an exemption for medical reasons.
Yes.
Okay, I think Daryl and I had the same expression on that. When you say doctor from U.S., I
Doctor
guess
in the U.S.
you get the shots records.
No. This
no,
is
no.
only
No.
for an exemption.
Exemption, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, because Jose, you had sent out the YouTube, what you sent, and also the attachment, I think, was helpful for many of us because we're able to, we're seeing shot records from every country you can imagine, and, we're looking for the specific shots and determining if the student needs to have that or not.
Now, on the same line, we are accepting the records from outside the country, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Coming in for them, because we're not going to make them do it again.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I just want to clarify. Thank you.
Okay, after we've had this great meningitis conversation, which could go on for hours, no, we're not going to. We don't have time because I'm just pushing us right along. Any more changes that we want to add to the list for consideration? The December 16th meeting now, were you here for that? December 16th, we changed our next meeting to December 16th instead of the 9th at 9 a.m.
I'll be here at 7 like I was today.
Excellent.
I'll be here at 7 like I was today.
We'll be looking over the entire list with feedback from Tim that will tell us the amount of time that's going to be needed for each one of these. So any other requests to go? Oh, that's right, Cheryl.
And you said that so happily. Okay.
I'm worried.
There's a Houston status, right? We have a Houston, that was brought up before?
Yes.
Thank you. Veteran,
The county, the student lives in Houston, so they put Houston County.
okay. Was the veteran question added? The veteran changes, questions to the?
Yes,
That's
it's in
already
the,
addressed?
yeah, well, it's in the minutes for consideration.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
So was it finalized, the way that we had?
Okay, as long as it's on the list, I know it will get.
It says place affiliation. Place affiliations on parentheses on top
Okay.
in question, reduce
Oh, yeah, it
choices
hasn't
to
been,
3 former.
Yeah.
approved.
Okay, it's just-
Right now,
Dependent,
because we'll
yeah.
do the approvals at the next meeting.
That's okay. Great. Okay. Request to place multiple degrees from the same university under a single PCL. Does that mean anything to you, Angela? I don't know what a PCL is. What's a PCL? Oh, please. Currently, when a person has gone to the same school for 2 years, we receive the following EDI. I'm thinking that the person entered the institution twice on the application, once for the bachelor's and once for the master's. However, on the load of this, the second degree is lost. The second degree will not load. And there's a bunch of lines and... Okay.
For those of you not on web, Cheryl just held it up for everyone to see.
If the EDI is sent like this, one PCL with multiple SESs and DEGs, then the second degree will load. Bunch of lines. So I'll show you what this looks like, but request to place multiple degrees from the same university under a single PCL. If you'll pass that down to them.
Take a look at that. It may be a programming.
Yeah, that's an EDI issue.
Yeah, an incoming programming issue.
Hashing, that sounds like a Stephen word, or a Tim Paston word. And then we have an applied, or a A&M specific thing, although other people might be interested. A&M would like to use ApplyTexas for graduate admissions at our campus in Qatar. We believe that the international version of the graduate application, I don't know what this is at the time the best fit for that campus. However, there's one exception. The international graduate application asks U.S.-specific, and we've brought this up, I know, before, U.S.-specific visa questions. These visa questions are part of a mandatory module. A&M requests that the visa questions be made an optional module that can be added for domestic institutions and not included for campuses that are abroad. And I know that's been brought up in different, the modularization of those visa questions has been brought up before, and I don't know what we did about that. You don't remember that, Pat?
Right.
No? I thought we talked about that.
I remember talking about it once. I don't think it came back, well, maybe during one of the subcommittee meetings. I don't remember it coming back with an idea to make the module optional, so that's the first time I'd heard that piece.
Well, good.
Okay, so you want them to use the international application?
We want to be able to, let's see, we want,
Yes, use the international application, but turn the visa module off, so if the campus is in a foreign country, being run by, in this case, A&M, they can use still that international application, but not have to put in visa information.
But can you make it that specific? I mean, you'd have to, if you turned off the visa module for the international application, you would turn it off for all international applications. I don't know how you'd make it specific to those people.
Very good point.
I think, what else is in that visa module?
I don't know, but I can.
well, but you just wouldn't elect to turn it off.
But she's talking about, in your case, you have international students coming to A&M.
Yeah.
If A&M administrative person turns off the module, the visa module in the international app, they're going to turn it off for those in Qatar and those in College Station. There's one international app.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't be able to achieve what you were hoping to.
Well, you
Have
would
to
for
do
your
it like
Qatar
residency,
students.
where
Yeah, for your-
where you answered a question that I'm, studying abroad, and then it gave you.
Far through it.
You could have College Station students skipping the visa
Never
module.
been able to find, we've never been able to find a way to use this for them, and we don't want to use Banner self-service to do this. We want to use ApplyTexas. So we're trying to figure out a way to get this set up to be able to use ApplyTexas.
Sounds like back to the
So-
drawing
They have a
board.
real problem with the visa.
Yeah, because ideally, I mean, if they could skip it, is that what you're saying? They can't skip it? So they can't skip it and go straight to some sort of instructions, okay.
If it was optional, what you'd have to realize is that if you turn it off, you're allowing your own college station students to
Yes.
skip it as well.
Right.
Hopefully they wouldn't, but you know they will.
Well,
And the way that optional actually works is that it wouldn't show up for any of the college station students.
Oh, it'd just be gone.
Yeah, so they would all skip it.
It would just be gone.
It would be gone.
Oh, optional, yeah, you turn it on or you turn it off.
How many institution-specific questions do you have?
As many as you want.
So like if they enable that option or that module, they can still ask those questions at the end for those specific students.
But if you turn it off, are you going to have impact more people at College Station or
Right,
Qatar? So
Yeah.
you have to.
I guess that would be like an institutional decision.
So maybe the request should be an app type that is international. And I remember this discussion where we've talked about the fact that our app is international for students coming to the United States. But what you're talking about is international for students who are staying international.
We have the same issue at Houston Community College, but of course, community colleges can't use the international application, but we had that same problem when they tried to figure out how to do that. All the questions were, irrelevant. So we have to do it like with paper and a file upload, because you can't use the application for people out of the country. Because they kept saying it's all irrelevant.
So maybe that's really the request. What does an international app look like? What questions would you want on there? Which is very different than the request that you just made, but really might be more accurately serving schools like yours and Houston Community College.
Angela, could we not do like we were discussing about dual credit, where if, somewhere at the beginning of the app, if they're doing A&M, they select they're going to be an international student, then it just drops that part from the app so that the visa stuff's not asked?
That's what we want.
Yeah,
I mean,
the
that's
dynamic
really
questions, yeah.
identified at the beginning, it just doesn't.
But that would still be defining an app type, because that's what we're talking about with dual credit, is having an app type that we determine based on how they answer the questions. And this would still be an app type based on how they answer the questions. So, yeah, that could be the request.
We just made that request.
I request that we have a new app type called
We'll put that on the list.
International, and it'll show up after I retire.
International.
Come on. International.
From the two-year school perspective, I think that would be a good idea to have a separate application type for international student. But when we go to build that, I would like to look at doing it the same way that we were discussing earlier about the dual credit issues, that we develop the questions in such a manner that if they're intending on going to a four-year school, it would direct them toward questions that perhaps a four-year school or a graduate school would even want to have answered. But if they're going toward a two-year school, it would only focus them on questions that we would need. Right? Okay. I know that'll take a little bit more work, maybe even a subcommittee work on that separately, but I think that would be a good idea. As chair, Cheryl.
And you get to write the questions, not just edit them.
Daryl, by the time that comes, you'll be.
I think I just retired.
Okay, others?
I just handed something to Pat earlier in the meeting, but we have a request on our campus to have the discussion of even looking at, since we're talking about new app types, a graduate reapply application. It has become a bigger issue for us. We've just been using the readmit with our undergraduates. We've now used a full year with it, and we have a desire to do the same thing with graduates. So we'll put that out there as a request. I don't know if there's much interest from other institutions, but it is something that has our graduate colleges continue to ask about.
I put a smile face next to it.
Oh, good. Other suggestions, Daryl?
Again, I know the two-year schools don't have anything to do with graduate applications, but I think in keeping in line with what we're trying to do here, instead of creating another application to look at strategically placing questions on the graduate application that would direct them so that you would know when they submit that they're reapplying instead of having a separate application.
Yeah, I agree. When I say different app types, what I really mean by that is the work required to go through, determine which modules are required and which ones are optional based on that population. So I don't mean coming up with a bunch of more questions. I mean using what we have, figuring out what's optional, figure out what's required. And so yes, now we have this thing called grad readmit, and it's so short and sweet because they already attended the school, but that just means that we pull even fewer questions from our existing question base.
The one issue that we tackled or talked about last year, we looked at combining the applications that I don't think ever got resolved, was second baccalaureates, because oftentimes they'll do the graduate app and then it goes to graduate, and then we have to shuffle them around and have them redo an undergraduate application because we don't actually get the same information. So that would be so helpful if we could put that back.
Pam, we've had that issue for a number of years. We even if there was a second baccalaureate app, we wouldn't use it.
Really?
And here's why. We ask a series in one of our questions. We have a dynamic question on the transfer app that specifically deals with post-baccalaureate certification, because we want to know, are you doing a second bachelor's degree? Are you doing teacher certification? Are you doing just personal enrichment? Because that impacts financial aid as well. And then we feed all those into PeopleSoft based on how they answer those questions on that dynamic question. And then there's programming on the back end that says, okay, this comes in as a degree seeking or a non-degree seeking students, which then impacts financial aid. I think the whole issue of a second baccalaureate, I want to look at that, because my concern is that there could be students who, if the question are not as specific and very clear that if you have a bachelor's degree already, this is the application you need to fill out. If you don't have one, stop. I just have a fear that other students who don't have that degree may try to use that as their application.
I think the biggest problem we run into for second backs is they don't know what to select when they go to ApplyTexas. You know, do I get a graduate? Do I get a transfer? Do I get a readmit? You know, they just don't know, you know, if they got their original degree from us. They just don't know where to go. So that's our big, you know, question.
We could build that into a part of Daryl's query logic that is at the beginning of the selection, but that would have to be preemptive of almost every selection of choice. We may have to start with 20 questions before you can open an application.
And that goes back to me saying, yeah, we're going to want to give the people a shortcut too, if they don't want to go through that.
When we very first started at UT Austin with an electronic application many years ago, we had that exact thing. At the beginning of the application, there were, I don't know, probably 10 questions, and then based on your answers to the questions, it gave you international, U.S., undergrad, grad, transfer, freshman. It was really very slick. But
we had 9 different ones coded into that.
Yeah.
I just a minute ago was curious, so I looked at the common applications profile, and that was one of the first things they said is, are you a transfer, are you a freshman? And then from there it kind of moved you to the institutions and the applications. that you would want to sort of help guide you in the direction that you needed to go toward. High school counselors historically always complain that the ApplyTexas app needs to be more like the Common App, and we have to remind them that these are very different institutions. The institutions that use the Common App are mainly independent private universities, not community colleges, and the institutions that use ApplyTexas are predominantly public, 4-year and 2-year. But I do think at least this takes us through some conversations to hopefully help drive students into which application they need to be completing.
Do any of you ever go fill out a Common App? I do every year, just to see how it works. No, the Common App.
The Common App.
Other suggestions we want to add to the list? Anyone? Remember that we need to have, go ahead, yes.
Well, I just wanted to ask, I don't know if it's been asked, but for application type, has there been more, for early college students, has that been requested, or?
That's come up before as well. For early college students, early high school, we call them early high school students.
We could include that as part of the dual credit stuff, because it would be very similar, yeah.
Pretty much the same.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are you talking about students that actually graduate from early college high schools? Okay. Okay, so we've added that to the list. In the dual credit group, can you consider that as well? Great. Good.
I just have a question on that. Based on your question that you asked there, do you think you need an application for graduates of early college high schools that would be separate? I don't understand what the reasoning would be for that. Did I misunderstand what the question was?
Well, like in UTEP, we admit early college students before they graduate high school. So we have an application for early college and another separate one when they come in as freshmen. So for those students, the early college ones, they don't have the option of going to ApplyTexas to fill out the application.
Okay.
Why though?
Okay, I understand. Let me explain. We have a unique situation at El Paso because of our partnership, and so I understand what you're asking now, Jose. I'm sorry. We have students in the early college program that actually receive their associate's degree in the 11th grade while they're in high school. So they graduate with their associate's degree before they graduate from high school, and then in their senior year, they actually start attending UTEP working on their bachelor's degree. So I understand what you're talking about. It's a relatively small number, but still, that's a special population. But we can look at that when we look at the wording on that.
It's a small population, but it seems like it's growing and growing.
Yeah, it has the potential to be. It might be 500 a year that do that eventually.
But why could I'm still a little confused. Why couldn't you put them through ApplyTexas?
I agree with you. I don't see where there's a problem there. We just need to work on the questions on that. I really don't think there needs to be a separate application type, but clearly there's a special population there that the university level might have to look at. But we can work on that when we do the wording for the dual credit, because it's still going to be an undergraduate application.
Uh-huh.
So we'll look at that.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, final chance. Anyone else? Okay. Do you remember that we have to have, by December 16th, we have to have anything that we want considered. That's our last chance. We need to get that to, I'm thinking it needs to go now directly to Tim. Angela, would that be preferable?
You can always send it to the ApplyTexas help.
We can use the help?
Yeah, they'll always get it to whomever it needs to go.
To assist the ApplyTexas team in determining how many hours it's going to need so that in the December 16th meeting, they can actually come back and say, yes, this is huge, or no, this is small. If we could send that to them prior to the December 16th meeting, and when I say prior to the December 16th meeting, 5 o'clock on December 15th is probably not the best time to send it. So if we could actually say at least a week before, we could send it. That would give them time to take a look at it. Then for the December 16th meeting, we have our huge, how many hours is it going to take, so we can actually plan out the hours. So talk to your colleagues, see if there's anything else we need to add.
I think for the agenda, we need November 30th, specific items that we want to talk about. And that, whether we have hours at that point or not, if we need to talk about anything, I need that by the 30th. And any questions from the field or anything like that, they have to be in the agenda. We can't just start an open forum anymore.
So we can't have an old business, new business section?
No.
That's really going to hamstring the way this committee works. Just to go ahead and put that out there. I know you had mentioned that to me before, but that's going to be a real problem.
I think our agenda goes through our attorneys, and that's...
Yeah, it's a public record, and I agree with you, but I believe you can still hold a new business or an open forum at the end of a meeting.
Yeah, because
there's no action.
We've had to go through this every year, where we have to get an agenda approved to get on the the Texas Registry, so we've done that. We've put the agenda out there, but then we've had the opportunity to still have discussion because things could pop up. For example, the T-Rex issue, that meningitis, whatever that pops up. And I'd hate for us to not be able to have those conversations here and make some sort of impact, specifically if it's something that we think may need to be changed or enhanced or tweaked to the application mid-cycle.
So we need to check into the new business or old business, at least at the end, so that you have that opportunity for the forum to bring out. And I get, in this point, I know it didn't have anywhere on here about adding additional things, but we didn't take action. We just add them to the list. The action will be taken at the December 16th meeting. So are you going to have to list every single action item, every single change? So when the agenda comes out, guys, that means you need to double check and make sure every single one of these items is on here that we have up for change. And if we could ask you to as well, because you're going to have a really comprehensive list. Because it has to be on there for us to be able to vote on it.
So we need to revise your statement about any additional items need to be posted prior to November 30th. Is that correct, Becky?
We need to actually say that the items need to be submitted prior to November 30th. That's exactly right, so that Jose can add them. And we don't have to have the hours because that's part of the report. But we need to have the items listed. So Jose will need them prior to the 30th. So anything else that comes up, just make sure you send to the help email, but also send it to Jose because he needs to list it on the agenda.
Yes, but it can be the entire list, and we can choose not to apply hours to them.
Yes.
But we just need to have the entire list, the catalog.
Yes, the catalog of all of our options. And then at the December 16th meeting, we'll be going through and determining which projects will be the ones that will be worked on for the next year, next cycle. Okay. What's next? I went through my agenda.
Not here yet.
My agenda says adjourn. Yeah, we'll take a break. Lunch should be here anytime?
Anytime.
Okay. What are we going to do after lunch? What do we?
Can we do maybe perhaps the subcommittee meetings?
Oh, that's a good idea.
I mean, after lunch, we're done, aren't we?
I'll say, what's left after lunch? Oh, so we're actually...
I mean, we've gone through the agenda, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken.
Yeah.
I've looked through this, and I think we've
That's what I
covered
said.
every
The next
item
thing on my
that's
agenda says adjourn.
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
So December 16th, 9 a.m. If you want to touch base with your subcommittees so that we can plan the next meeting, et cetera, so on if need be. And thank you all for being here. If you bought lunch will be here shortly.